Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Cultivate 2026. My name is Andrew, and I'm with the Grand Farm team. Get to be your host with my fantastic co-host Matt here. Matt, who are you?
My name is Matt Weeks. I'm with an organization called Ad Farm. We've been proud supporters of Grand Farm for a long, long time, and it's an honor to be here today.
That's great. And what are you guys doing this afternoon?
So most importantly, we like to get the perspectives of producers and farmers and ranchers across the U.S. And so we're hosting a Farm Voice panel session. That'll be a robust conversation in a quick 40 minutes and lots of insights from producers' perspectives.
That's great. And that's so important because at Grand Farm, we believe that growers we have to identify their challenges, and they're the end users of this technology that's being developed. So their voices is extremely important. Okay, what you're going to hear here and see and participate in today. So at our Cultivate conference, this is our way of identifying the top challenges that exist in our region. So on the table or on the chairs here, we have our regional agriculture pain point report. We're going to be talking about that in a little bit, but we went through a pretty robust study to identify what are the top challenges that our producers in the kind of the local ag industry is facing here. And then what we're going to be doing the rest of the day is bringing in subject matter experts, startups, industry leaders from around the world to talk about those challenges and how they're addressing that. That's the goal. Identify the challenge, identify technology, bring people together to solve that. And one of the best ways of doing that is in rooms like this. It's a very full room. So I'm going to invite my colleague Jada to talk about a couple of things on how we can make the best experience for everybody.
Yeah, thank you, Maddie. All right, hello everyone, welcome to Cultivate. We are so excited that you are here today. As AJ said, I'm gonna go through some building quirks with you guys. So, if you need to use the bathroom, they are located right over there under the exit sign through the hallway. Thank you, Nathan. We also have bathrooms upstairs on the second floor and the third floor as well. Coffee and water are located on the back bar. Feel free to grab a refill, but we do ask if you need to use the restroom or get a refill, please wait until a speaker is done talking to do so. Also, the building is old. It's beautiful. We love this building. With old buildings, there's creaky floors, creaky staircases, so just be mindful of where you're walking around while speakers are talking. If you need a meeting room or a quieter space to have a conversation or network with someone, we're just gonna ask that you guys go upstairs to either the second or third floors. On the third floor, there are some private meeting spaces for you guys. If you have any questions as to where those are located, there are maps located around the facility as well as taped inside the elevator that you guys can reference. Let's see here, I got a long list. Lunch. All right, we have a special surprise for lunch today. So we have a bell, and this bell is going to ring when it's time to be dismissed for lunch and when it's time to come back from lunch. So Matt and AJ are gonna demonstrate for us here. Please ring the bell.
Oh, with gusto. Ring it with gusto, Matt. There you go.
If you hear that sound, please come back to programming. We want you to hear all of our speakers. Snacks and break will be around 10:30. Snacks will be at the bar where the coffee is. And I think that's all I have for you guys today. If you have any questions, I'll be floating around. Come find me. I'll be more than welcome to answer all of your questions. And now back to Andrew.
Thank you, Jada. Shout out to Jada and Sydney who made all of this happen. Yes, they do a fantastic job. Fun fact, we call our events team our experience team because we want to host experiences for our attendees, not just events. All right, so none of this is possible without all of our Grand Farm partners and our sponsors for this. So I would be remiss if I didn't shout out our fantastic sponsors for that. I think we have a slide on this, but I want to give a shout out to Ad Farm, Aerial Plot, CHS, NDSCS, the NSF I-Core Great Plains Hub, and they're right there in the back of the room. If you have a startup that you are trying to do and you want to do some exploratory sessions and you want some funding to support that, they got some great options. So I definitely encourage you to go talk with Brenna and Paula back there. Microsoft, KWS, the Bank of North Dakota, and then our friends with Ag Country and Farm Credit Services of America are buying us lunch today. All right, so without further ado, again, what we're doing today is identifying the challenges, bringing in speakers from around the world, and solving those challenges. So I'm going to invite my friend and colleague, Dr. William Adderholt. Run up here to talk about our regional agriculture pain point report that you all have, and we'll take it from here. Dr. Adderholt, the floor is yours.
So I'm going to start this actually by acknowledging a couple of things. Our experience team does an amazing job getting these things set up. Our marketing team, which you'll see around the room, is helping gather these amazing stories. If we can make sure they get a little bit of love here, can we get a round of applause for them for helping make this amazing event? I don't know if we're going to have a chance to provide gratitude for Andrew Jason. The work that he's doing on the ecosystem team and the entire ecosystem team is what makes these events possible, these experiences possible. The curation, meeting with everyone here year-round to bring a room like this together. So if we can get a round of applause for Andrew Jason and the experience team, or the ecosystem team. And like was shown up here with the slide, with the partners and our sponsors, nothing we do as a nonprofit in agriculture, leading innovation in ag tech is possible without the people in this room. And that's what I'm going to talk about today. So if I can get a round of applause for everyone here who's showing up and making sure that collaboration happens in agriculture. When we started Grand Farm in 2019, one of the core things we recognized that we were seeing really early, Brian Carroll in the back here was one of the first that really saw it, was a lot of technology we were hearing about was often a technology looking for a problem, rather than a problem driving technology creation. And so we brought a group of growers together out on our 40-acre farm just outside of Horace, North Dakota, and we asked them, what are the challenges that you're seeing in agriculture? And we brought out some whiteboards. It was really difficult to get them out there. There was only a few of us on the team at the time, and we wrote down everything they said. And we ended up making this document, a one-page document, really not well published, and it was the first edition of our pain point report. And we heard amazing feedback and validation of why that mattered to the ecosystem and how it was helping guide innovation and thinking and how relevancy could be created through the problems. And today, we're proud to announce the 5th edition of the Regional Agriculture Pain Point Report. As we look at this publication, a lot of work has gone into this. The work of the community of agriculture growers and the amazing associations and councils who have provided the priorities of the work that they worked with, the USDA, in terms of helping to bring together stakeholders. We use that information to populate this each year. Inside, you'll learn a little bit about how we do our work. But what I would say, and I think Andrew kind of touched on it, is this entire experience today is curated around this and how we're able to drive relevancy in agriculture. And it doesn't just stop here. It's something that we're going to do throughout the entire year. So one person I want to bring up to talk about why understanding challenges is important and why this is relevant to their work is Dr. Lainey Bilodeau. Dr. Lainey Bilodeau is a site leader for the Edward T. Schaefer Agriculture Research Center in the Grand Forks Human Nutrition Center. She's a leader with the USDA's Agricultural Research Service, and we're really excited to have her as part of this community.
Hi, everybody. It's great to see everybody out here. Big crowd. Good morning. So, as William said, I'm the director of the Edward T. Schaefer Agriculture Research Center here in Fargo, and I'm also, for now, over the Human Nutrition Center in Grand Forks. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit today about what we're doing in USDA ARS in North Dakota and how that aligns with the Pain Point Report. So we have 3 locations in North Dakota, which is amazing with as low of a population as the state has to have 3 ARS labs here. It's wonderful, and we work together, collaborate to bring the research forward and solve stakeholders' problems. So we have our center here in Fargo. We've got the Northern Great Plains Research Lab in Mandan, and then, like I said, the Grand Forks Human Nutrition Center up in Grand Forks. I'm talking over here too, sorry. We cover a broad scope of research and a broad scope of topics. You know, for ARS, our stakeholders are national, and our work is done locally and regionally, but we do also have that national scope. We're working on, in Fargo, you can see the commodities that we work on here: cereal crops, insects, pests, and pollinators, potato pulse crops, sugar beet, and sunflowers. We also do work in weed science and food safety and food animal metabolism. In Mandan, we're working on soil health, cropping systems, metabolomics in plants and animals. And in Grand Forks, we're looking at how agricultural food crops affect human nutrition. So that's where they wrap in agriculture by looking at metabolic health, bone health, nutritional assimilation. So Grand Farm, as William said, has this regional pain point report. And they have identified these 5 major pain points over this last year, the high relevant issues that need to be addressed. So in ARS, we are talking to those same stakeholders, and that drives our work. So I'm going to talk to you, just briefly touch, because I have 7 minutes, so I'm going to briefly touch on these 3 pain points. The first really in the program is on herbicide resistance, and I'm going to talk about how we're approaching improved weed control, also early detection of pests and pathogens, and improved soil drainage and health. So we are approaching weed control with a number of different avenues, and one is autonomous weed control. And this ties into the National Proving Ground work that's going on in partnership with Grand Farm, our digital ag tech, our DASH program, where we're developing AI-based weed identification. This work is being started for us in the sugar beet crops, where we can develop weed maps, and we have an autonomous weeding robot. It actually hits weeds in sugar beet fields with hot water, so no worry about herbicide resistance there, and we water the ground a little bit. We have other methods of approaching weed control as well, by using cover crops, early blooming crops like camelina, and also even developing weed-tolerant corn, which seems kind of counterintuitive, but it's corn that thrives in the middle of weeds. So again, no need to treat. A large portion of our work in Fargo is focused on pests and pathogens for the various crops that we work on. You can see a number of the diseases here that we are focused on, and we're developing early detection methods using molecular technology, and also using imagery. So we're working on sclerotinia, fusarium, cercospora, and again, we have a lot of this work going on. Here, actually, we do some of this in conjunction with Grand Farm. Some of the sclerotinia work is being done with that. We're using X-ray technology to look at sunflower seed weevils, and working on sugar beet root maggot. That's just a touch of what we're doing. We actually work on a number of different other pests and pathogens. Where'd I go? I went the wrong way. Wrong button. So we're also working on pain point 3, which is improved soil health and drainage. And a lot of this work is being done at Mandan. It's also being done in Fargo, to develop management strategies, improving soil plant function, nutritional qualities of food crops, and also looking at ecosystem service benefits. And so we're looking at all sorts of things by rotating crops and planting alfalfa, and that it later improves corn yield, things like that. The last thing that I want to mention is a tie between all 3 of our labs in North Dakota, and this is one of those great opportunities that we have. We are scaling this up. We're partnering with NDSU. We're partnering with Grand Farm. We're also taking this up nationally for our agency, and that's the Healthy Soil, Healthy Food, Healthy People initiative. And what this does is it takes the concept of sort of farm to table and expands it out to soil, to human nutrition. So we can improve soil health, we can develop crops that have better uptake of nutrients in the soil, but are we assimilating it? The end result, really, what is it? You know, if it's great to improve a food crop, but can we take it all the way out to, bet I didn't fall off the stage, we can take it all the way out to, are we assimilating those nutrients? And that kind of brings sort of full circle what we're doing in ARS in North Dakota. And I think that ties into these pain points well, kind of at all aspects. So that's what I have. I think that was close to 7 minutes. So this is us, USDA, here in Fargo. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So as we look at the Regional Agriculture Pain Point Report, what you have there, that now will guide the rest of this conference. It will also guide our work throughout the rest of the year. The work starts now. A lot of the work that we've seen with that we've done up to this date is to get ready for starting to look at how we bring additional partners in for next year and find people who also want to solve these challenges just like you. I really appreciate that you're here, counting yourself in to looking at challenges and finding ways to solve them throughout the agriculture community. As we look at the future of agriculture, it's due to relationships like this, collaborations between growers, startups, corporations, researchers, and government that are going to drive us forward into a brighter future and helping us to continue to feed the world. Thank you.
For our next presenter, I'm excited to introduce Shannon Hoff. Shannon is Senior Vice President and Head of North America, Australia, and New Zealand Product Supply at Bayer. She has been recognized with a CropLife International Food Hero Award, St. Louis Metro YWCA Leader in the Workplace, St. Louis Business Journal Most Influential Business Women, and distinguished alumni of Iowa State University and North Dakota State University. Please join me in welcoming Shannon.
Can I just say a couple of things here while Shannon's taking the stage? This morning at our office, just right across the block here, Shannon led a powerhouse discussion with about 65 women in ag over breakfast. It was a very fascinating conversation. Also, two fun facts I learned about Shannon is that she oversees 2,600 employees from 32 locations around the world, and that to me seems like a lot of work. So thank you for everything that you do. And also, we are very excited this morning to announce a new partnership between Bayer and Grand Farm. So maybe, Shannon, before you start your formal presentation, maybe you just want to say why you guys are coming on as a partner and what we hope to do?
Yeah, for sure. No, thanks, Andrew. I think, for us, this is really important, being part of this ecosystem. And I'll actually talk about it in one of my examples today, for sure, as we come to the marketplace. We want to be where the action's happening. And on that first slide, there was some really amazing companies, large multinationals, all the way to startups. And then also what's really unique about Fargo is, we have the presence of USDA that we just heard from. We have the presence of a land-grant university that's, in my opinion, maybe it's because I'm a little biased, but that is doing a lot of really great work in our space. And then we have the startup ecosystem. And it's when you bring all of those together that really cool things happen. And so we don't want to miss out. And so we really want to be a part of this partnership. And understand the true value of it moving forward. So I think we'll be able to see how we can really utilize this and how we're already really utilizing it right now. So I want to talk a little bit about meeting the moment together, and this is really intentional. There's a lot of problems to solve, and I'll show the 5 problems that the team here kind of working through your customers, our farmers here in the region identified. By and large, similar no matter where you farm around the world or what crop you farm. But Bayer's not going to solve these problems. Other large multinationals alone will not solve these problems. They'll only be solved if we actually can figure out how we work together. And we have 2 really good examples today. So here's the 5 pain points. If you didn't open your book, to look at them. And Andrew didn't even ask me to include this slide. I just thought it'd be a great way to start out the day, is we ought to show you what they are. And in 2008, I was an agronomist in Iowa, and I moved to St. Louis. And my first job when I moved to St. Louis was to actually lead the weed control strategy for Monsanto. If you remember, we had launched Roundup Ready technology in the middle of the previous decade. And 10 years later, we were thinking about what would second, third, and fourth generation technology look like. And in those conference rooms in 2008, 2009, and 2010, we actually came up with the technology, Viconic, that we will launch over the course of the next 12 months. But that's the timeline it takes. It took from 2010 to now more than 15 years later. The hard problem's not inventing the technology. The hard problem is getting approvals around the world for those technologies. I could tell you not that I'm going to overstate how simplified the science is. We have amazing scientists who do really hard work. But the complication is actually getting a lot of those approvals. But we agree. Weed control reliability is a challenge, and it's a challenge no matter where you are in the world, and one we need to solve. Pests and diseases are identified too late. Today in our field production system, so I have all of our seed production for Bayer Crop Science here. So if you're buying any of our seeds, they come through our organization. Every single field production that we have, we take a digital picture of it via satellite through a partnership that we have with Planet Labs. It tells us everything that's going on in that field that we can't see from the road when our agronomist drives by it at 55 miles an hour. And even if they get out and look at it or take a drone and fly it, we could get a look. We have models. We then feed those images into models, which can detect the smallest difference that's occurring in that field. And we do it for every single seed production field that we have. And so the power of bringing together an organization like Planet Labs, their satellite constellation, in our fields and delivering you better seeds is really important. And we think that utilizing technology similar to that with our solutions will help farmers control pests and disease better. Looking at soil moisture and poor drainage, I have to remind my global colleagues that this is a problem. Because when you're in a large multinational company, 9 out of 10 conversations are about not having enough water. I grew up in southern Minnesota, and we pattern tile every field, right? And so the world has a really hard time understanding that we actually have too much water. But it is a problem unique to our region, and one that we have to be committed to solve. And how do you narrow a window, whether it's a planting window, a spray window, to make sure that we have access to that field? We also agree that nutrient applications are going to continue to be really important. It's going to be challenging, and I would anticipate, regardless of where you're at, especially as we think about the U.S., there's going to be continued scrutiny and regulatory pressure in how we apply those nutrients as well. And we need to be thinking about, as we bring solutions to the marketplace, that we can meet the needs of our customer, which our customers are mostly our consumers, whether you're feeding, whether you're fueling, or whether you're providing food to the marketplace, that we can continue to meet those demands. So we will have to continue to produce more, but figuring out how we do that with less pressure into the environment. And then the last challenge that you guys identified, and I can tell you as leading an organization that still depends on a lot of labor, this is our own personal challenge as well. Both skilled and unskilled labor is a challenge for our organization, and not everything can be automated. I can tell you we automate everything we can, but there are just simply things relative to biology of plants where we cannot automate everything. And labor for our organization continues to be a challenge. So I would say we agree with these challenges, and the good news is we think we're in a position at Bayer to provide solutions, but not alone, working together across this industry to provide those solutions. I gave you a few examples of some of the solutions that we're looking at, and kind of really maybe I'll just jump into those. So we have 2 examples, and both of those examples I think are ripe for opportunity as I think about this region. The upper Midwest and the northern Great Plains. I tell this story. When I moved to Fargo in 1997, I moved from Ames, Iowa. Grew up in southern Minnesota. Had never been in Fargo before. I'd actually never been in North Dakota before. And I came here to do my master's, stayed for my PhD as well. There were 750,000 acres of soybeans. That was part of my PhD. My PhD was to introduce Roundup Ready crops in North Dakota. Monsanto paid for my fellowship. Today, there's 7.5 million acres. This technology has brought tremendous value to this state. There is 400,000 acres of corn. Today, more than 4 million acres of corn in this state. So tremendous change has occurred in a relatively short period of time. This is going to be a new crop. We talk about short corn and everybody thinks it's just corn that's a little shorter. Well, that's true. But this is really, truly a new crop. Think about this is when we launched dwarf wheat. We have to really manage this crop differently. And so what does Preceon short corn do? It really takes three things and brings value to the grower. It's certainly shorter corn, and what that provides us is it provides us an opportunity to access that field year-round or season-long. And so when you think about, and you're going to hear from some really neat startups today, when you think about nutrient management, we're no longer applying 185 pounds of nitrogen in the fall and hoping like crazy it stays in place for that crop the following season. We can apply that nitrogen through the course of the season and really feed it as it needs it, and utilizing technology that allows us to know when it needs it. So that is a huge opportunity. Thinking about pest and disease management, I'm guessing many of you probably aren't fighting rust yet, but it did reach southern Minnesota this year, caught most farmers by surprise. The benefit of an application of a fungicide was somewhere between 30 and 50 bushel. I would guess there'll be very few cornfields across the Midwest this year that won't get one, but probably two applications of a fungicide. This allows us to be able to do it with a ground rig application. Nobody's fighting over whose plane's going to come when, and are the planes from Texas going to get here in time. It's going to have the ability to use your ground rig application that most of you already have on farm to be able to access this field for not one, but two applications if needed. We're going to partner with data. So this is going to be sold with a recommendation that comes through our field view system. We announced a partnership here earlier this year with John Deere that this will come through a seamless transaction. I'll be perfectly honest. We have a family farm yet. John Deere Ops sits in our combines. It sits in our planters. And if we're going to be part of this ecosystem, we got to figure out how we're going to work with these partners. So we'll be able to provide the farmer who purchases this prescription through a seamless transaction. That's a big deal. Being able to partner with other equipment manufacturers, because we're not in the equipment business and we're not going to be in the equipment business, but we're going to partner with people who are really good at being in the equipment business to make sure farmers have this access. And then the third unique thing about bringing Preceon to the marketplace is we're going to provide you support through our agronomists. 3 years ago, people were saying we're not going to hire agronomists anymore. In fact, we don't need you to go and be an agronomist. And that's hard for somebody who spent 10 years going to college to be an agronomist. In the last 12 months at Bayer, we've hired 300 agronomists to join our organization. Most of them came with about 8 to 10 years of experience, so they came from other companies, to join our organization because this is a business built on relationships, and farmers want to talk to people, and they want to talk to people who understand their farms. And that's through the use of an agronomist. So those three things are going to bring value to the marketplace, and we think that it's going to require partnerships across our industry to help farmers succeed in driving for higher yields on their farms. And then the last partnership, which was mentioned, Camelina. And I'll be perfectly honest, when someone said Camelina, I'm like, what? And then they said the seed's smaller in canola. And I worked in canola, and I thought, how is that even possible to have a seed smaller in canola? But we just launched a brand called New Gold, and we announced a partnership with BP on an end product for sustainable aviation fuel, renewable fuels. And so this is thinking about partnerships in a way that's very unique and different than we've thought about them in past. Historically, you partner with companies within your own space, so the agriculture space. This is partnering with a company completely outside of the agriculture space, but what's really important is you have to have a use for your product. I've been part of this industry, been part of Bayer, previous to that Monsanto. We've done a lot of projects with companies. And unless you have a place or someone who's going to buy that product, the success is pretty limited. And so it's a really neat partnership with BP because they've got a place that they can sell this fuel. And so when we provide products to farmers, and we have sold camelina, we have growers out in Montana who will plant camelina this year that will then get crushed and delivered and be used as sustainable aviation fuel. So again, really thinking broadly as well. Here's what's really neat about this partnership as well. This takes partnership with universities like North Dakota State University, because you might imagine in a company, we have 36,000 employees in Bayer globally. There ain't no one of us who knew anything about camelina. But we need to have expertise, and so we partner with the people who have that expertise to help us get a product to the marketplace, because we're really good at science, and we're really good at taking products and germplasm and genetics and advancing them through our testing program, but finding those experts to really create new revenue for farmers. You might imagine there's the revenue streams for farms in western North Dakota or Montana can be limited. This is a new opportunity without replacing a current food crop. New revenue really for the, creating a new value chain, and then really new opportunities for this region. And so really cool to be part of this ecosystem. And so in closing, I think I'll end with where I started, right? This is doing something together. It's together anticipating the needs of our farmers. It's not providing an innovation that we then need to go find a problem to solve. It's already listening to what our customers are telling us and solving their problems. It's delivering best-in-class experience and innovation. An innovation without a great experience is not going to go far on the farm, and we all know that. And I think it shows by how we're staffing our organizations and calling on our farmers. And then, again, it's working across the value chain. We're not in the equipment business. We're not in the fertilizer business. And we're not in oil and gas. And we need to find partners who can help us succeed at the farm gate, who are experts in those spaces. And so with that, just a big thanks. And I'm excited to be back in Fargo. And really, truly excited to be part of this partnership and really helping this economy continue to grow.
All right, next up, one of the unique things about our region up here is that although we are in the Midwest, we are agriculturally diverse. I believe North Dakota grows 45 different commodities. We're number 1, 2, or 3, and I think 14 of that, from flax, canola, barley, activities, things like that. So right now we're gonna have an interesting discussion on the future of specialty crops in the upper Midwest, as well as diversification, which I think Shannon brought this is a perfect segue. So I'm gonna invite my panelists, Anna, Scott, Chris, and Nate up here. So if I just said your name, sprint up here. All right, there we go. We got 3 of them. There we go. We got everybody. All right. We're all going to get nice and cozy up here. All right. Well, everybody have a seat here. So I got some questions. We'll probably open it up for audience Q&A. But maybe we'll go quick introductions. One of my pet peeves for panels is when we spend all the time doing the introductions. So keep it short and tight.
Do the best that I can. My name's Anna Teeter. I'm the Novel Oilseeds Program Manager with Cargill. So Shannon mentioned camelina. That is one of those crops that we are looking to crush based out of the Twin Cities.
All right, we'll be talking more about camelina.
Scott Sinner, VP of Supply for SB&B Foods, based out of Castleton, North Dakota. Food-grade soybeans that we ship around the world to food manufacturers.
Chris Wigert with Healthy Food Ingredients. We're specialty grain suppliers to the food and pet food industry, working directly with brands, trying to open up that transparency supply chain so they can get all the way to the farm. I'm currently the Chief Sustainability Officer for them.
I'm Nate Van Wetschel with ADM. I lead the edible bean group as well as originate yellow peas in North Dakota and Minnesota. And I just have to say, the picture you're showing there is like a family picture. I don't know where the hell you got it, but like, that's crazy.
Well, in full disclosure, Nate's son is our farm manager, so I'm not sure if Brendan had a role in that, but if you...
Yeah, we'll have a talk later.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
If you hear any heckling, it's also probably your son that's heckling you during this conversation. All right, well, let's talk about diversification and specialty crops. I think Shannon did a great segue into talking about camelina and the markets and that opportunities that presents. But could you just talk about kind of like what the specialty crop opportunities are you most excited about in the upper Midwest? And then more importantly, what that means for the farmers, the economy, and things like that. And let's start with Scott.
Well, obviously, I'm going to say soybeans is the thing that I'm most excited about. But, you know, the thing is that a lot of people don't realize is we are so fortunate, like Andrew said, to grow as many crops as we have here. You know, from a buyer perspective, I'm just going to give their perspective. They love coming to this region to buy specialty crops because the farmers here understand what it means to raise food under contract. They understand how to meet specifications in a contract. And so it gives this region such a unique ability to provide what a lot of these buyers are looking for.
That's great. Chris, maybe talk about it from your perspective, and also how many different crop systems are you working with?
Man, you're going to put me on the spot with that. I have no idea. Probably over 100, 150 of some type. Now, that might be 15 in the same crop, you know. So I think what we're most excited about is we're starting to see the resurgence of knowing your farmer regardless of the crop. So I think that's really going to aid in the specialty, what we call specialty crop world. I think the other thing that really has our attention is, you know, if you start talking about flax, barley, soybeans, those sort of things, a lot of those crops are losing acres much faster than other crops because of marketability and markets locally. And North Dakota brings that unique, as Scott said, the ability to grow so many crops in a climate like this, food ready, is unique. And I think that's something we need to remember sitting in North Dakota.
Great. Let's talk about the magical fruit that is beans, Nate. Also, maybe talk a little bit about where these beans are going, who your customers are for that.
Yeah, so it's, you know, I already look at the area as a juggernaut for specialty crops because dry edible beans are such a huge part of our world up here, along with sugar beets. You know, they're kind of always interchangeable as the second and third crop, but from a revenue standpoint and from the ability that we have to grow them in this particular geography, it's massive. You know, our beans in North Dakota, Minnesota, we're number one in pinto beans, we're number one in kidney beans, we're number one in navy beans, we're number one in yellow peas, which is another business that I run for protein. But they're going all over the world. I mean, we're shipping every day. We're shipping to Europe. We're shipping to Central and Latin America. We're shipping to South America. We're shipping to Mexico. So our product really is getting everywhere it needs to get right now.
That's great. So one of Nate's customers is Bush's Beans. Nate, how are the America 250 Bush's Beans? Can you give us a review on those?
They taste really good up front. The aftertaste isn't as good as I wanted it to be.
That's
so
fair.
Try them though. The dill pickle one is very good. The bomb pop one, kind of disgusting. and the apple pie one, it might surprise you. So.
All right, great. Well, let's talk about camelina, Anna.
Absolutely. So the demand for renewable fuels is expected to double in the next 15 years, which means there's a huge opportunity for producers to actually be able to capture that need and that demand for crops like camelina. And in terms of marketability, a lot of farmers outside of the area of North Dakota are desperate for new crops and marketability without really disrupting their traditional corn-soy rotation. And so something like Camelina can actually provide that opportunity for producers, and we see this expansion across the U.S. for these novel oil seeds, pennycress, Camelina, Carinata, winter canola. And so I think this is a huge market of opportunity for producers to incorporate a new crop in their rotation, which is incredibly important.
That's great. Well, let's stick on that for a second. Shannon obviously talked about it. You just talked about the opportunities. Let's talk about the challenges. We were talking about Camelina out at Grand Farm with our farm manager, and he had some reservations based on the size. So maybe can you just kind of talk through the challenges of bringing a new crop to market?
Absolutely. So I will say that Camelina is where canola was 50 years ago, but with the advantages of technology of today. So a lot of the issues that we might see right now can be overcome with plant breeding. So the seed is about the size of uncoated alfalfa, maybe a hair smaller. It is pretty tiny, but we have some very ingenious farmers being able to overcome that fairly quickly. This is an opportunity for those of you in the room. How do we make that better, easier to handle? And then, of course, the usability of things like herbicides in season. We just don't have the crop breeding up to that standard yet, but it's also really competitive with weeds, so maybe it's not as much as a concern today. So those are a couple of the concerns we see from producers, and then storage is going to be the last piece. All of our infrastructure today is designed for large-seeded crops, corn, soy, wheat. Camelina is tiny. How do we adapt the infrastructure that we have today to be able to handle and store a crop like Camelina in the summer as a high oil percentage crop?
Great. All right, let's talk about sustainability or stewardship or whatever we're going to call it today. But maybe how are sustainability goals and consumer preferences influencing crop demand? Chris, let's start with you.
I think that's an interesting question. When you really look at the data, if you pull up spins or whoever you really want to look at, the consumer is really confused. So if you start at the consumer level, they're really confused. You've got the diehards that really read everything, know what they're going to the grocery store to get. Then you got this kind of next level, maybe 5 or 10% of your consumers, and that first level is like 1 to 3% of total consumers, by the way. Then you get to this next level, you're at that 10 or 15% where people are really interested in, but maybe not quite as confused as the next 10 or 15%. They're really maybe locked into one certification, or they're locked into one supply chain, or they're locked into something that, they buy this one product when they go to the grocery store no matter what, because they believe in it. So we've got them confused. We've got them confused because we use so many words. We use sustainability, we use organic, we use regenerative, we use whatever those words are. There's greenwashing in all those words. They know that. So they have to do a lot of homework to figure out what's real and what's not. So starting at that consumer level, I think that's where we're at. Brands are highly interested in it, and they are highly educated in it. So now we're talking about two different total things, and they're really trying to figure out where they fit in that space and the needles they can press and the levers they can press to move. We do have to remember, however, direct food sales are a very small part of the United States infrastructure to start with, as well as just total acres needed. You can take an entire food chain of a very large CPG company, canning company, whatever you want to pick on, and it's not as many acres as everybody thinks. So to really move the needle, we need everybody, the togetherness, to move needle in those spaces.
That's great. I want to make a quick plug this afternoon or later this morning. Mariah Johnson with VP of Sustainability for Farm Credit Services of America is going to have some interesting comments I think are going to be related to this. Maybe Scott and then Nate, you're dealing with a lot of international markets. How are these international markets impacting kind of the sustainability metrics?
Yeah, similar thing. What we're finding overseas is it's very, very market dependent. And for example, I work with our Japan customers quite often, and in Japan, most of their sustainability goals are being driven by the government. Their government has stated sustainability goals, and so a lot of the major food companies are working towards getting to some of those goals. But then in some of our other markets, specifically Southeast Asia, for example, in Southeast Asia, you've got these major food companies that export a lot of their product, and a lot of their products being exported to Europe. And Europe tends to lead the way in some of these sustainability goals and some of these stewardship practices. And so we're getting asked quite a bit by a lot of those customers to be providing some of this information. So it's here. It's certainly being asked about. Again, the food manufacturers are very educated on what they're looking for, but it's very market dependent.
Yeah, I think, into the Latin America, Central America, we don't think about sustainability as much, but like you were saying, into Europe and the UK, the deforestation policies that are new and have just come up, that was an oh shit moment for a while, because we knew that we didn't have a chance to meet their requirements, right? I mean, you guys could say that same thing. There is no way we could do what they were doing. Thankfully, for the time being, they've scaled some of those requirements back, so we're still okay. But we're always looking for, to make sure that we're staying up with all those trends and things like that. We do have a sustainability program in Michigan right now that focuses on cover crops. It's using some USDA Climate Smart grant funding. So that's one of the steps we're having. But the bigger issue in these geographies is our sustainability, or whatever the word you want to use. We don't have the environment for it. We can't get a cover crop in when these crops come off in the fall because there's just not enough time to get things growing. So there's been some of those targets that we've tried to meet that we just a lot of times aren't capable of doing.
Great. I'm going to ask one more question, and then we'll open it up to the audience. So maybe, Matt, could you be the mic runner after this question? But all this is going to be reliant on traceability. Scott, I think your operation is fascinating. I love getting the tour and seeing you guys take the photos of the before and after, of the shipping containers. So maybe just talk about kind of the traceability, where it's at, where it needs to be, where you think it can go in the future.
So traceability, is basically just tracking the product from the farmer to the customer. We've been doing it a long time, but COVID and supply chain disruption that happened during COVID has really highlighted the supply chain, and we are getting more and more questions about traceability and making sure that we're providing the data. Our customers are asking for data. For what's applied, what's the plant date, what's the harvest date, rates, dates, fertilizer, all the things that's being applied to that crop, and so we are basically tracking it from the farmer all the way through. Now, we are working on automating that process, right? We are very good. I'll be completely frank. We are very good from the time it hits our pit until it gets to our customer. The difficulty is gathering that information from the farmer. Now, we are lucky to have very good relationships with our farmers, and we can get it, but we would love to automate it a little bit more than it already is.
But aren't you just like having to call these people, like these farmers, and just a lot of Excel sheets and things like that?
Everybody, there's a wide array of where people are at on the technology scale, right? And so that's just the world we live in today. And so we use all means necessary. Some it's electronic, some it's phone calls. So it just depends.
Great. Chris, you said 150 different cropping systems you're working with? That sounds like a pain in the ass for traceability.
Yes and no. I don't think we give enough credit to the farmers. Yeah, they may be getting you data and stuff the other way, but they have the data, and just their fact, their willingness to share, guys, is something to applaud them for. So there's definitely challenges in that, as Scott referenced, but we don't see the challenges. We've linked with John Deere data. We've used about every data platform out there to try to gather that data. But even with that, you're going to have farmers that don't have it in that supply chain, and you're going to pick up the phone. I think the technology needed there is more probably in-house once that technology is all gathered, to organize it, sort it, get it customer by customer in our world. It would be great to say there's going to be someday out there a technology, and I hope there is, that can get all the data from the farmers with all the different platforms they're working that just uploads. But I think we're a ways away from that. I think it's more just, you know, what do we do with the data once we have it?
Yeah, that's great. All right, questions from the audience. What do you all have? We got a fantastic mic runner. He's very fast, so he can get to you. We got a couple over here, Matt.
So just a quick question on sustainability. How much of your business was ingredient or soybean is organic or from your total per year?
So we focus on non-GMO and organic soybeans. So our current business, about 8% of our business is organic. So the majority of it is non-GMO.
Great. And another question over here.
We're about 50-50, give or take.
On the renewable fuels front, we keep hearing this come back around that there's going to be a new market opportunity. But if you look at the regulations, a lot of it's going to the crushers as far as the value piece. And then we need the government to finalize some rules. How do you feel about the GREET model or where they're going to go, and any thoughts on that process?
I'm going to start with a course correction. It's not the crusher that gets the value. It's actually the blender that gets the value. So it's even down further than us. So that's a really important distinction. In terms of GREET value and global political markets access, it's really going to be dependent on flexibility, right? So if the program in the U.S. is a good fit, we'll operationalize there. If Europe is the destination, we'll go there. And that's the beauty of having that global market, is that producers then have stability, which is really, really necessary for any new crop, right? You cannot yo-yo with producers because you're going to collapse any desire to try something new. But to the point on certification, if we don't have the ability to certify with the data that those producers have, we cannot sell that at a value with that premium to that market. So data is incredibly important in being able to capture it. We are required to provide all of the fuel producers the certification to say that this feedstock meets those requirements. So, and that falls on the crusher to do that.
Great. We got a question back there.
Hi, Anna. I promised you a hard question. Can you speak to the farmer ROI that they're seeing?
Absolutely. So if this cannot be market driven and producers are not making money on this crop, we have no leg to stand on, right? So today, Cargill is spending our own dollars to incentivize producers to do this because we believe in the long-term vision. As those credits, that value gets passed down the supply chain, that's still getting sorted out, and it's a frustrating process, but something that we recognize is incredibly important if we want to drive producers to adopt. And so that's something, I think, with any of these new markets, right? Growing pains and tolerance for growth is something that you're going to have to be able to handle.
Can we stick on that for a second and maybe just get a quick round the horn? Because it seems like there's supply-demand opportunities. I'm assuming there's a lot of farmers that would like to do this, but there's not enough demand maybe. But maybe just talk about, like, as you're trying to convince farmers to shift practices, shift equipment, shift cropping systems, what's that process look like, and what do you hear from the farmers? Maybe Nate, you want to start?
We're in fairly good shape in the dry bean business just because the equipment is fairly across the board. It's just combines, planters, things like that. The place where you start to run into some issues is, you get into kidney beans and things like that and need some specialty equipment. But I think for the most part, the farmer is looking for those other avenues. And there are years, because we're a flat price market, there's no Chicago Board of Trade, right? There's those years where the numbers just don't work. And in a year like this, we're going to be down probably 30% on dry bean acres this year. So that's, hopefully those guys come back. But the barriers to entry are not necessarily those factors that you have. It's more just the economics of it.
Great. Chris?
Yeah, I would echo a lot of that. We don't really struggle. Iron is probably the struggle if you need iron in that supply chain. But as just discussed, lots of times you don't need additional iron or you don't need an additional piece of equipment. We've had very good luck working with farmers, and especially once we open up that playbook to them in regards to who it's going to and where it's going. A lot of reception out there to switching methods or switching crops or whatever that ask would be?
For us, farmers are going to plant soybeans, and so for us, the conversation it's no different. The only difference is obviously the technology within the seed, and so it's always comes down to a weed control conversation. We're not asking them to change their row spacing or do anything like that. It's just they're just planting their soybeans. It's just working with what variety is going to be best for them.
Sure. Other questions from the audience?
Back on the renewable fuel front, what is happening with the byproduct, the camelina meal, and where are you at with that?
Super great question. 60 to 65% of the product that comes out of the crush plant is meal, and if we don't have a market for it, then the economics of the crop just fall apart, right? So one of the beautiful things about camelina is we already had some regulatory approval to feed in beef and layers at a 10% inclusion. Now we are collaborating across industry to increase that inclusion, make sure that it's safe to be fed, that feeders are very comfortable with that product, so that we can continue to grow the market, feed that product, and folks are comfortable and understand the value of it. So it's already existing in the market, we're just enhancing it, and a lot of these other novel oil seeds will need to follow in those footsteps to be market ready.
Specifically for camelina, how are you mitigating risk for pollinator collapse?
I mean, the really cool thing about camelina is it's a really great pollinator crop, right? It is the first flower available in the growing season. We start seeing flowers the first week of May. That's a really, really great thing for our row crops and our pollinators, because now it's actually a home for predators as well. So we're seeing some really great research out of the USDA Morris showing some incredible pollen availability for those pollinators, as well as a home for those predators to help benefit our other row crops. So I see it as a huge, tremendous opportunity in that regard.
Amy, give them a tough one.
I don't know if it's a tough one, but we talk about return on investment, and this might be directed more towards Anna or for the specialty market products, but how is your companies working with collaboration? So to drive these products over the corn and soybean markets for adoption, how are you driving that collaboration on the field, trying to get into more hands of the growers and convincing growers to try these products?
All right, so I get all the hard questions. I'm okay. I'm used to answering these questions with farmers, so this is a cakewalk. I mean, like I said before, we do have to start with an incentivization, right? So it's a premium to the producer over soybean futures, so we are able to market against the market movement, which is fantastic. It helps growers feel comfortable with pricing. When it comes to ROI and risk assessment for a producer, today you have to wait, you have to have 3 years of crop history before you can get coverage through RMA, for example. It's a huge risk for producers. Cargill has a floor in our contract. If you take it to harvest, you have a minimum viable earning potential for that contract. The state of Minnesota has an enormous amount of investment in risk coverage for producers to help overcome that, and I'm hoping other states follow suit. How do you drive adoption? You bring risk down. And as the federal government gets more comfortable with it, then more opportunity, acres, all of those things will open up as we get more information. And then, of course, there's other cost share dollars. There's the co-ops who are really doing a good job of learning how to do this, and we need those folks to be able to be educated. It can't just be us and the farmer. It's everybody in the supply chain has to want to drive this to the farmer and see value for them. So it's a really whole system approach that we're looking at for value to the farmer. And then, of course, those offside, hard to quantify benefits, right? Weed suppression, reduced soybean cyst nematode pressure, soil erosion management, a low input crop. That's part of the appeal in the CI score or low carbon intensity market, is that it's not very expensive to put in, right? So that risk is then lessened compared to some of our other crops. So it's a multi-prong approach.
Yeah, I can add to that. I think it really depends, where you're located. Today we're in North Dakota, and I think it's a lot of spreadsheet math. And there's some ecological benefits to that. We generally don't calculate those in with our models. We're calculating dollar for dollar versus other crops in the region. And then we're using best cases on yields. So, I should say we're using like yields. If the farmer wants to use worst case scenario, let's use worst case scenario, but then let's use worst case scenario on the crop they want to compare with too. So there's some trickiness to be done with that. And then we're giving a premium to that. Now, what that is, who knows? Now, that's different if you're in a specialty wheat market maybe, because if you're in a specialty wheat market, you probably are. That's traded on the Chicago Board of Trade. You're probably that price plus the day you're booking that, right? So there's various ways to do that, but you have to be competitive. And brands that at least we work with understand that. There's additional costs in those models that aren't at the farm level, which those brands that are really educated understand that. You know, if you're talking about a program that they want that crop from that farmer every year, you've got some storage built in, you've got stuff built in there that's just a little unusual. So there's premiums all the way through that, so they're used to talking to that.
Great. We got time for one last question from the audience. Uh-oh, Connie's going to have a hard one, I'm sure.
No, Zach and I are going to get into this more, but you're doing more the sell side, and that question started to answer this, but we're going to talk about finance on the farmer side. If you could have a little bit more money in one part of the system to drive more adoption, where would it be? And what, don't get tied up in finance jargon, but what attributes would it have?
Great, let's do this kind of rapid fire down the Anna, and we'll start with you.
All right. Well, clarity on policy is number one. It starts with the demand, right? And I know that's not necessarily a finance answer, but it's the reality that we're in. But from a producer perspective, a willingness to do new and adventurous things that are maybe harder to prove and willing to finance off of that. So, for example, if a grower hasn't grown camelina, how do you get financing for something that you've never grown before or have grown once? So that's my two wishes.
Scott?
For us, okay, so there's a number of things. Policy obviously is huge in soybeans right now, as most of you probably know. It would be really nice to have a little bit of solution to some of this going on. But regardless of that, I think that some of the investment that is going on right now in autonomous weed control, I think is so important for our industry going forward. If you had a room full of farmers, you wouldn't find any of them that like to apply herbicides. They'd love to just put a robot out in their field and let them go do their work, and it'd free them up to do other things. And so, it's so important for us to continue to not only innovate on that front, but to continue to help some of these startups and some of these other companies that are farther down scale. Because, in North Dakota and other parts of the region, we've got huge fields and lots of acres in a short time to cover it. And so that's the biggest challenge for sure.
Chris?
Yeah, I'd add to that real quickly. Risk mitigation is where I would go with that, especially at the farm level. So if you're looking at a specialty crop that you're growing maybe for the first time, what is that delta? Let's just say they don't make a food grade spec. What's that delta between food and feed that maybe we could protect for the farmer somewhere in there? Just that entire risk mitigation. The other thing I think to think about is, especially at the startup level, and especially if you're in a startup crop and you're trying to do some things that are a little unique, you can't just grow enough for 1 year's supply. You can't go to a brand and say, hey, so there's some additional expenses start up there. Do you plant 3 times the acres to make sure you have enough for the first couple of years in case you have a train wreck? Those sort of things are things that I'd be thinking about in that space.
I don't really remember the question anymore. I just like listening to Anna. But I would kind of echo the weed control piece right now. I mean, it is a huge, huge problem. And it's going to continue to be probably the biggest barrier to entry on some of these specialty crops because we don't have the Bayer technology to fall back on. It doesn't exist for these things. And it's like that for a reason. We don't want those traits built into our products because they are going globally. We like the food safety perspective of it. So I think if we can't get the weed control issue figured out, and for the love of God to stop getting all the dirt to blow around here every spring, we are going to have huge, huge problems going forward.
That's great. All right. So at the heart of what Grand Farm is we're matchmakers. We want to align people with kind of the challenges, align the tech with the challenge. So we have 400 eligible bachelor and bachelorettes in this room here that have technology and are innovators and looking to support the ag ecosystem. So I'd like to do, as we end this panel, is do a quick around the horn. What is the challenge that you would like this room to solve? And then at the break, I want you to go and meet these eligible bachelors and bachelorettes, and maybe date.
Well, come on over. I would say that Cargill's really good at crushing. We're going to keep doing that really well. Everything else is kind of fair game. And I say that a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but in reality, that's what we need. We need the entire industry to move in the same direction. So maybe not one thing, it's everything but.
Sure.
I actually have two. Number one, again, is autonomous weeding. Of course, that's a piece that's huge for us. The other one is allowing a lot of these technology options that we're working with farmers on to talk to each other and not so farmers don't have to have 65 apps on their phone. They can only have 2 or 1. Mm-hmm. That would be fantastic.
Right, Chris?
I'm going to go a little bit different direction here. I'm going to say nutrient density. The technology coming that's being looked at there, I think that's going to be very interesting tech, regardless of your crop system.
I think supply chain right now is my probably number one on my list. From a global perspective, I mean, we need a better system of integrating, the front end with the back end right now, because that is very sorely missing.
Great. All right. Well, let's give a round of applause for our panelists. All right. Well, Chris, Scott, Anna, and Nate, thank you so much. And I will invite back up Matt. You can leave the mics up here.
As we transition, we'll do a break after this next section. But for this section, I'd like to introduce Mr. John Mann, Grand Farm Startup Investor Program Manager, who will be taking us through this next section on startup pitches. John.
Thanks, Matt. Hi, everyone. I'm John Mann. I'm the Startup Investor Program Manager here at Grand Farm. I think I have the best job here. Personally, I get to talk to the innovators day in and day out who are supporting farms in the region. And there's been great conversations this morning. I would have loved to hear what everyone's favorite dry bean is. I've started to get more into beans over time. I think I'm a kidney guy, but I think there's so many recipes you can implement them in. Shannon talked a little bit about fertilizer and kind of controls on application. And I think there's, within the United States, there's one state where I'm seeing more conversation about that problem than any other, and that's Iowa. And today we're going to hear from a founder who's developing a slow-release fertilizer to help with runoff and fertilization. So let's welcome Kyle Anderson with Form Bio up to the stage.
Well, thank you, John, and thank you, everyone, for being here. It's pretty impressive to get this many innovators and farmers and industry networks all connected in 1 week. So proud to be here. So Reform Bio is reforming fertilizer. We're trying to create a more resilient farm economy and building biochar-based slow-release fertilizers so nitrogen and phosphorus can stay available to your crop and not end up in our waterways. We talk a lot about risk in farming. I used to be a farmer. I managed my own 1,400-acre grain farm. I operated a agricultural sales organization. I had about 100 growers that I worked with. And farmers are really good at managing risk, but there are risks that you can control and risks that you can't control. A lot of farmers feel helpless that nitrogen runoff and applying fertilizer is a risk that feels kind of outside of their control, and we're trying to help them solve that. And as everyone knows, these fertilizers are too important to risk, as the common forms of nitrogen are leaving fields before your crops can use them. In-season nitrogen applications, we talk about precision, getting out with micro rates. That all sounds good, and oftentimes it works, but sometimes it doesn't. Last year, it didn't work on our family farm. My brother tried to get out with 2 passes. Because of rain and crop growth, he wasn't able to get out on the second one. We're trying to minimize the need to be applying fertilizer multiple times and trying to get out there when those windows of weather don't always align to what you're planning. And as we're seeing the spring play out, nitrogen fertilizer has been increasingly volatile. Global supply chains are great when they work out, but when they break, it really impacts everybody up and down the supply chain, especially farmers that are price takers and not price makers. And it doesn't just affect the farm, it affects all of us. We're involved in this ecosystem together. In central Iowa, we have a watering ban that Central Iowa Waterworks has to institute because we have too many nitrates in our drinking water. So as they leave the field, they're not gone forever. They end up in our ecosystems. We have algal blooms. There's a dead zone in the Gulf of Mexico. And we have nitrous oxide volatilization. Nitrous oxide is 300 times more potent of a greenhouse gas than CO2. It's something we don't talk about. These are things that we're trying to solve with our first product, nitrogen reformed. So it's a 30% nitrogen product. It's a slow release, allows for single pass application, all pre-plant, 12 times slower release profile when compared to untreated urea, improved nitrogen use efficiency or recovery efficiency by 50%, and allowing farmers to see ROI on year one. So this isn't the kind of thing where you have to follow this through for 7 years before you're going to get to those returns, and seeing an increase in yield on average. So it's not just a coating, it's not just a soil amendment. We've really reimagined and re-engineered the whole profile of the nutrient release using biochar, activated engineered biochar, to chemically bind to our nutrient source. And this is all IP that has come out of Iowa State University, and we pelletize so it spreads on like any other dry fertilizer. So like I mentioned, this is a spin out from Iowa State University. Over 5 years has gone into this specific formula, and we've done greenhouse studies, lysimeter studies, USDA field trials. We're currently doing trials here with Grand Farm, in Georgia at Grand Farm, and in ISU, and expanding our field trial network as well. And we're seeking partners to help us scale this. So we're currently raising a seed round. We're a little bit further along than many startups in this seed stage. So aligning with investors and strategic partners, feedstock providers, if you will, and looking for growers who want to adopt new technologies, try this on their farm. We have a founding grower program. I'd be happy to talk to any farmers in the room about that if they're open to it. And align ourselves with co-ops and ag retailers that want to help bring in a new generation of fertilizers into the market to their farms. So my name is Kyle Anderson. My contact information here is, and I look forward to connecting.
Thank you, Kyle. Just a reminder, if you guys want to have some conversations, feel free to head up to the second and third floor and have some privacy. Andrew Jason is my manager, and if you've ever met him, he is a dreamer. He always tells us to dream big, think big. The next startup is really thinking small, nano small. So let's welcome Wayne Arnold, the founder of Prospect Growth, to talk about their new nano fertilizers.
Hi, everybody. I'm Wyatt Arnold. I'm the CEO and co-founder of a company called Prospect Growth. I'll be talking about fertilizers as well here in a moment, but I actually wanted to start today by looking back at what was going on in Fargo 60 years ago today. So I went and found an old edition of the Fargo Forum and to get a sense of what life was like 60 years ago. And so what had made national news was that Frank Sinatra had just gotten out of a bar fight. You could buy a new car for $1,800 or a used one for $100, and you could take the family out to dinner for 50 cents a plate. And so obviously a lot has changed from then to now, and that holds for agriculture equally. You know, you look at a 1966 John Deere versus a 2026 John Deere, they're completely different machines. And over that same time, you know, we've roughly tripled our yield productions. But what's really interesting is that despite all of this change socially and in agriculture, we pretty much use the exact same fertilizers today as we did in the 1960s. And the 50s and 60s were this period of innovation where we developed things like ammonium phosphates, chelates, nitrification inhibitors, granular slow release. And then we kind of said, you know, that's enough, and we stopped innovating. And so I think right now we're facing this issue that as fertilizer prices are increasing, we have to recognize that fertilizer will probably never get cheaper unless anybody in this room like has a mine they're not telling us about. And so I think we have to kind of turn to renewed innovation to try and improve the return on investment from our fertilizer products. And so pretty much all of our existing conventional fertilizers do the same thing, and that's supply nutrients as salts, which become soluble ions. And ions are fine if you're a hydroponic lettuce grower, but in the real world, ions are hard to control. They're reactive. They like to bind. They don't play well. And so they underpin a lot of issues in agriculture with fertilizers like phosphate types in the soil, immobility of certain micronutrients, and then you think about tissue burn. That relates back to the fact that we use ionic fertilizers. And so you can kind of ask this question, that if with our conventional sort of legacy fertilizers, if they have these issues that relate back to the fact that they are salts, is there a way that we can supply fertility into the crop in a format that is not a salt? And in this case, what we're looking at is using solids, which kind of sounds dumb, because obviously a crop can't reach down and eat something that's solid. But what we think about is if you make that solid really, really, really small, so small that the crop can actually absorb it through pathways that are designed for water or soluble ions, you can actually get solids into the crop. And so that brings me to what we work on, which is these compounds called nanofertilizers. They're liquid suspensions of extremely small solid nutrient particles that can enter into the crop, and then enables you to have new functionality, things like internal slow release of fertility within the crop. You can really significantly lower your salt stress. You can mitigate certain loss pathways, and we really intend this to be just a drop-in replacement for existing liquid fertilizers. We don't want new equipment or new hassle. And so this technology has been around for quite a while, not 60 years, but more like 15. And the reason why it's not widespread or commercialized is because we don't really have a way of making these compounds. They've been, common in research, but not commercialized. And so that's where our sort of innovation comes in, is we have a new synthesis pathway for making these materials. We think it's sustainable, scalable, low cost. And then we can work on a number of different materials because it's more of a platform technology. And so right now we have a few different focuses. One is on foliar micronutrients, so taking immobile micronutrients, trying to supply them in a foliar form where they can release that nutrition inside the crop, be a little bit more mobile, and limit the number of passes a grower might have to make to correct a micronutrient deficiency. In the case of phosphorus, we're trying to make an in-furrow fertilizer that has a really low salt index, so it's super crop safe, but it's also really tie-up resistant. And then it's not necessarily a fertilizer, but with copper, it's this legacy fungicide that we have around. It's for organic production. It doesn't work great, and we're starting to see we can use this technology to improve it as well. So this year, we're fortunate to be doing about 15 different trials across the US and Europe. Everything from really small mode of action work in a lab all the way up to multi-acre trials with growers. Mainly focused on row crops. Super excited to be working on sugar beets this year. I think they're a very interesting crop. And we're really trying to see where this technology can provide transformational value. We're not trying to push it on the country, and get this generalized biostimulant-like effect. And so with that, I just want to thank everybody for listening to me today. If anybody who's an out-of-towner like me likes Fargo enough to want to stay, I heard that there's a great one-bedroom apartment on 20th Street, and last I heard it was $45 a month, or at least it was in 1966. Thank you, guys.
So I'm a central Minnesota boy, go back and visit the parents and come back. And one thing I've noticed over the last 5 years are solar fields. They're popping up all over central Minnesota, and now they're starting to come to North Dakota. And they're controversial. Farmers don't want land displaced with solar. Up next, we're going to hear from a startup that believes that we can integrate agricultural production and solar for farmers. Let's welcome up James with Helical Solar.
Thanks, John. Good morning, everybody. Thanks to Cultivate and Grand Farm for having me come out and speak today. So I'm James McKinnon, founder of Helical Solar. We're based out of Austin, Texas, and today I'm here to talk to you about next generation agrivoltaics. So agrivoltaics is basically keeping the farmer farming as he's been doing in his family for generations, him or her, without any minimal disruption, allowing him to maximize his livestock or crop yield while generating the maximum amount of solar energy per acre. Now, currently with today's utility scale technology, solar developers want to maximize their energy per acre. So you have sort of a dichotomy or opposing viewpoints, and this is why you don't see agrivoltaics at scale today over hundreds of thousands or millions of acres. So our primary go-to-market and pilot that we've done so far is related to the animal feeding operations, confined animal feeding operations, so dairy and beef. We believe that there is a better way to sort of mitigate the heat stress. Currently, that's either with permanent structures or with fabric shades that are ballasted that can get damaged in winds. We think we can mitigate basically the dry matter intake loss or the weight gain opportunity loss, as well as generate energy with a different solution. So it's a large opportunity. It spans from Panhandle of Texas all the way up through North Dakota. A lot of concentration in Iowa, as well as the Central Valley of California. So if you look at this in aggregate, it's about 650 square miles, that a potential of about 74 gigawatts of solar that people wouldn't mind because it actually has that dual use benefit and provides that shade and heat stress for the cattle where that's dairy or beef. So that's why we developed the Dersan next generation array. So basically it's a two-piece system. It's a large giant ground screw. We actually use digger derrick trucks, the ones that install your electric poles, to actually screw these things in the ground. Because of that, it's a point solution, and we can do things like ring the sides and rear fences in feedlots and do other things out in the fields with row crops. The other portion to this is a pre-assembled, prefabricated dual-axis array. We actually ship these from Texas to Kansas, about 4 per 18-wheeler. Once we get it up there, we use the digger derrick to install the piles, and then we can actually lift these over, put them atop the pile, 3 pins and 2 cross bolts, and you have your 25, 30-year lifetime system that generates about 12.5 megawatt hours per year, enough to offset a single-family home. We also believe that we can get into row crop production. So our technology is different than the current technologies out there that are sort of commoditized, whether that's single axis fixed in that picture on the left, or the single axis tracking in the center on that left picture. So you see up there, anything pink going to red is 50 to 100% shading, and that results in yield loss. And so the only way to mitigate that is depopulating panels or spacing those rows apart. And when you start to do that, you start driving the energy density or the megawatt hours per acre per year through the floor, and that makes it uneconomical for the solar developers to support that. So this picture on the right is basically using a Massachusetts Department of Energy Resources shading analysis tool. So we have a 4x4 grid of 16 arrays. You're looking at the third row over a third column down, zoomed in picture. As you can see, because we're dual axis tracking, it sort of acts like a sundial, so your shadow moves throughout the day. It's not a big deal for cattle. They'll mosey over underneath. It only moves once every 10 minutes. It's barely noticeable unless you're sitting there watching it. But for row crops, it's specifically important because that shadow moves in and under and basically throughout the day so that we only encounter single-digit shading and negligible yield loss. So with that dual axis tracking, it's actually the most efficient and way to generate solar energy on terrestrial Earth. It doesn't really get any better. We actually use the same utility scale panels that have the rear side bifacial, so we're actually getting rear side gain as well. But when you start looking at spacing these out for ag, especially ag like in North Dakota, 60 foot is probably a minimum for corn in probably Kansas or something like that. You know, we're more than double the sort of competing technologies at that spacing today, whether it's the single axis tracking in yellow, the fixed tilt in green, or even the new vertical bifacial mounts in the red. But for North Dakota farming, it probably even gets worse when you space these out to 72 and 100 foot spacing, and the differences become really apparent. We're seeking paid pilots with row crops and feedlots and dairy, and we're also trying to raise our first seed round and looking for an investor. I appreciate the opportunity to talk and look forward to answering some questions later. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, James. Appreciate it. All right, we just heard some companies that are getting started and trying to scale up, but now we're going to celebrate a brand new company that is going to be doing their global launch right here, right now. So I am going to invite Jeremy Ellingson up on stage. There he is. So come on up here, Jeremy. The anticipation is killing us. What are you guys going to launch?
Thank you, sir. Morning, everyone. My name is Jeremy Ellingson. I am CEO of Ellingson Companies here in Fargo. We have offices throughout the country, and as most of you know, we've been in the water management industry for probably 50 plus years, working alongside growers and land managers and land investors, helping them install and engineer water management systems. And about 6-7 years ago, we started working on how do we get in the data game? How do we use technology to help our customers and improve the way that we understand how water moves through farms? And we started by getting with some of our key customers and really trying to learn what we could help them with. Precision agriculture had already taken off, and a lot of the feedback we heard was a couple things. One is we want something easy, right, as most growers, and I've heard that a couple times up here today. But we also recognize that we can have the best, most precision seed fertilizer plant in the world, but if our water isn't managed, it doesn't matter. And the light bulb kind of went on, and we started to ask ourselves internally, can we build a product, build an app, build a software that helps growers understand that better? So we started down the path of doing that, and really quickly we realized that there was way more to the ag industry than just Ellingson's customers, and we began focusing on building a new organization that we're here to launch today, focused on improving all of those things, along with bringing all the great engineering things, product things, and software things we had been doing in the water management industry for years to the entire ag industry, not just Ellingson customers. So I don't have a big PowerPoint today. We've got a little video to show you to help explain what we're doing, and I'm excited to announce our new company, Terrain, and our first product, Terrain IQ.
For years, as growers, we've known not every acre performs the same. We know which parts of the field struggle. We know where the wet spots are. We sometimes don't know why that is. Why can one acre outperform another in the same field by 20, 30, sometimes even 50%? With the same seed, fertilizer, and grower. The answer seems simple. The land is different. Different soils, different rainfall, different drainage. Even knowing that, we still couldn't see what was happening, acre by acre. The information is spread across maps, reports, notebooks, spreadsheets. And we still miss how water impacted performance across the field. Terrain brings land, water, and yield data together. So you can finally see what's happening acre by acre and understand why some acres are falling behind. When you understand what's limiting performance, you start unlocking its potential to increase your yield by 30% year over year. Then prioritize where improvements can make the biggest difference before you invest. Less guesswork, more confidence. Build comprehensive reports in minutes to make better decisions for every acre. See all of your fields in one pane of glass to compare yields, to see what seeds and soils perform best. Compare yields to county averages, tiled and untiled fields, and year-to-year performance to identify which fields to tile first. Even monitor your field devices remotely.
Terrain. Understand your land like never before. Make decisions backed by data.
Andrew, is this on? All right. So what you just saw, just the beginning, we're working on ML and AI-powered water management solutions. So we like to try it out in the test plots and the Grand Farm test plots coming days. So we're super excited about it. And you know, today we're here to ask you to join us in this journey. You know, the industry partners, you know, the experts, and growers. You know, join us. Let us solve this global water challenge together. We're here all day. You find some black shirts with the Terrain logo. If you have any questions, we're here. And then you can also visit terrainwater.com. And thank you, Grand Farm. And thank you for all for being here today. Thank you, guys.
And that officially takes us to break. We will reconvene at 10:45. See you back here.
All right, everybody. Well, welcome back. I know. The best part of these conferences are what's happening right now with the mingling, the networking, the socialing, and the onstage content is secondhand. But don't worry, there'll be a lot more time to mingle, network later today. If you are in the middle of a conversation that is just fantastic, I encourage you to either step outside or go up to the second or third floor. If you haven't been up to the second or the third floor, it's a beautiful space. You're gonna love it. But we are gonna get started with our second session here. And I am very excited to welcome up our next speaker. He has been accused of being the only federal government administrator that will give out his personal cell phone when he was the FSA administrator. So Zach Ducheneau is a third generation to manage the family beef and quarter horse ranch on the Cheyenne River Sioux Reservation in South Dakota. He was then the administrator for the FSA, and now his company, Fifth Sea Finance, seeks to provide new sources of long-term access to capital for producers through an infusion of institutional investor capital to improve producer cash flow retention while providing market rate returns for investors with a long-term perspective. So Zach is going to come up and present for a little bit, and then he's going to do a fireside chat with Connie Bowen, who has a lot of opinion about the future of ag. So with that, I'm going to welcome up Zach and just remind everybody, if you're in the middle of a conversation, we invite you to take it outside or up to the second and third floor. So Zach, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. When I was at the Farm Service Agency and people would clap when I'd get up, I'd say, you better wait till you hear what I have to say. You might be a little bit mad. I'm Zach Ducheneau. Thanks for the great introduction. Thanks to the fantastic work at Grand Farms. And it's just my good fortune that they went all the way down their relapsing rancher, former bureaucrat list and got to me to present with you today. What do we all have in common? I think that's what we need to be talking about in agriculture. And we need to think about how we can leverage those common needs to the benefit of everybody in agriculture, everybody in rural America, everybody in this country. So there are a lot of things that we all have in common. We want to be able to provide for ourselves and for our families and for next generations. I don't think anybody in here would disagree with that. So we have to think about how do we do that. Before I forget, I'm going to give out my phone number again, 605-222-3852. It's pretty prominent on the website. It's not the same one as the government phone. But what do we have in common? Well, for me, I grabbed a fig bar back there on the bar because my grandson loves those things. And I'm going to take him one because he's wondering where Lala is today. This week on our place, we're getting ready to do our annual calf branding. And we still do that historic cattle branding where all of the neighbors come around, all of the family gathers, and it's a social event much more than it is a work event. There have been times where the cattle have been outnumbered literally. And I want him to understand that there are important things that need to be done in the world that you sometimes have to leave paradise for. The last 6 weeks, I've been able to stay pretty well located on the ranch, do some colt starting, reground myself in the horsemanship principles that have led to any measure of success I've had in the world. And I'm empowered, I'm emboldened, and I'm willing to get back out there and take some chances. Probably gonna cuss, so apologies ahead of time. And to Andrew's point, the conversations that were happening just before I got up here and got the microphone are really what this is all about. And we have to think about the innovation and the opportunity that exists in those conversations. And the vision that I have for agriculture is one where we have 3 million farms that are doing what Grand Farms is doing. Because there are 3 million farmers in the country that we served at the Farm Service Agency. But the elephant in the room and the thing that we haven't talked about yet till Connie brought it up, how do we finance all of this? We're gonna have to find out that we have some things in common and really drive those home. What we all share in this room is the ability and the desire to help folks leverage and develop value from natural resources for the benefit of society as a whole. And there are some misconceptions and myths that I think we need to push back on in order to get there so that we can all have one voice and advocate for a better outcome for rural America. The first myth is that ag is not profitable. Every goddamn year, ag is profitable for somebody. I'm here to make sure that it's profitable for producers. That's my goal, first and foremost. How many producers we have in the room? How many folks in the ag business industry? How many USDA folks do we have in the room? I know we got one at least. Thank you for your work. When you get out into the countryside, thank your USDA staff because they're under a lot of intense pressure that they don't deserve today. But all of you people that raised, how many of you have had a business at some point in time? Or are in business today? How many of you have borrowed money for that business? Man, I must be the only one. Anyway, but if you're a borrower, or if you're, how many of you are bankers in the room? There's plenty of them. This is going to be fun. I wish we could do questions. So, from the banker's perspective, let's start there. How many of you wish that your depositor said, I need all my money back tomorrow? And by the way, I need about an 8% return on that. That wouldn't be a very good business model for you. It doesn't align with what you're trying to do out the other end of your building. From the producer perspective, how many of you have ever wished, man, I sure wish that my banker would ask me for this money back at a faster pace and charge me a little more for it? Those are the questions that we need to start to answer if we want to see innovation like at the Grand Farm scale across 3 million ag producers. Because ultimately what they're trying to do is make enough income off of their operation to sustain themselves, their family, and their legacy. And the extraction from their operation that's beyond their control, to me, is the biggest problem that we've got to solve. Because all of the 4 or 5 points that are in the report tie back to profitability. In 2026, it's projected that there will be $650 billion in ag debt. That's going to generate $631 billion of gross income. That's a pretty close spread for debt versus income opportunity. So we just got to figure out how to allocate that capital across this thing in a more equitable manner. So when a producer goes and sells his soybeans to the folks that were up here on the panel, and they go settle up their accounts for the year, they've got some money left in their pocket. How do we do that? We talked about the pressures that are on our bankers. They've got X number of months on the deposits that they have. So they struggle to go longer than that in financing producers. But there are entities that are in our midst that have the opportunity to go long with their money. And my company is trying to build a repository that can deliver that money at long term to producers. Think about philanthropic endowments. Think about your land grant university endowments. Think about your pension funds. They've all got money out there in the investment realm that could be working in our local communities. If we continue to push back on these myths that ag isn't profitable, the other myth, ag finance is risky. It is not risky if it's done at terms that meet the needs of the producers. If ag finance was risky, the Farm Service Agency portfolio would not perform as well as it does. I had the opportunity to lead a team at the FSA in pushing innovation from the federal perspective in finance, and our analysis demonstrated very clearly that when you provide terms that are flexible for the producer, they have success. FSA's portfolio is largely made up of producers that can't get credit elsewhere. And FSA's portfolio is roughly the lowest 3% in terms of economic viability in all of ag finance. Conventional wisdom, ag finance is risky, would stand to reason that that is going to have a high loss rate. FSA's loan loss rate is less than 1% by volume because the folks there are empowered with flexibility and the biggest risk pool on the planet, the United States Treasury. As we think about how do we unlock these other sources of capital, we think about capital flows in our rural economies. If we can get the Kellogg Foundation to take some of their money out of the stock market and put it in Main Street in Castleton, North Dakota, put it in producers' hands in a manner that provides them the return they need to do their charitable giving, now we've created producers that are depositors in the banks and will be depositors over the long term. And now that capital can start to cycle through that rural economy instead of getting extracted out. So we've got a lot of opportunity now with the pressures that are on our farming community to imagine a different vision, imagine a different solution set. And the fact that we don't see solutions coming from the federal government except for the stopgap measures, the disaster programs, the economic distress programs, really helps us understand that we need to think differently about this. In the philanthropic sector, there's around $1 trillion of corpus. Philanthropies are built on the premise that if you give away 5% of your total asset base, the federal government won't levy a tax on your endowment. That leaves 95% of that money invested in the world. Oftentimes invested in things that philanthropies would rather not have their money in. Land grant universities have investment committees that are managing their endowment. What if there was an opportunity for that land grant university to be investing directly in the producers whose kids they would love to see come to their school? What if there was a pension fund that existed that had its money allocated towards ag production at a long term, at a market rate return, that producers could start to pay into when they jump into agriculture right out of college, and pay into that over 40 years and be part of this finance system, this finance revolution, create deposits, not just perpetual debtors. So Connie and I are going to have a talk here in a little bit about how do we bring this about, what are the hurdles that we need to overcome, and I think I've used up more than my allotted time. Connie, my apologies. Let's have a visit. I'm going to grab my coffee while we do, though. Where do you want to sit? Let's sit on the couch.
Sit on the
Yeah.
couch. So I think everyone can tell that Zach is incredibly knowledgeable and passionate about. Did you mention what the fourth C stands for?
Yeah, okay, good. Good question. So Fifth C is the name of my company. And I'm a child of the farm financial crisis. And I watched my dad, who was of the highest moral character I can imagine, not be able to get financed through the 80s. And I had the good fortune of parents who were stoics and didn't let us know that they were really up against it. So by virtue of that, all of us are still in agriculture. But the 4 C's of credit have been obstacles and red herrings to me for my whole life. Capital, collateral, capacity, and character. I had the opportunity to serve as the lead steward of an agency that had 10,000 employees, a $31 billion lending portfolio. And when I left office in January of 2025, I needed to get a pickup financed. And I was denied credit because I didn't have an employment history with my current consultant company. So the federal government trusted me to run their deal. My friends at Gate City Bank didn't quite get across the line. But that wasn't the fault of the loan office. That wasn't the fault of the young lady that was trying to work with my deal. Ironically, because I had made good decisions in my life and my kids still like me, my daughter was able to finance my pickup for me. While I was at the agency, a couple of producers had an opportunity to buy their first forever ranch. One producer, one young fella is a crop duster, flying around the country, helping you all grow your crops. The other young fella is an electrician for a city in South Dakota, and he is providing registered seed stock in the Angus business. He had the help needed to get him across the line. The other fellow that's flying that crop dusting jet, he would pay you back 5 times to prove that he didn't owe you a dime. The character for those 2 young fellows and those young families was impeccable, and it did not matter to the current finance system. Without the help that the electrician had, there was no opportunity to get in. So the 5th C is courage. And I mean to bring courage to the investment community that matches the courage of those 2 young families. Because too often we hear about what's your skin in the game. That really raises my hackles and makes me want to cuss more. A producer has all the skin in the game all the time. And we need to help other folks who expect a producer to bear all the risk get a little skin in the game as well by helping them have some courage that matches that of the producer.
So yeah, that I think is incredibly important to understand. I want to also contextually introduce myself very briefly. I'm Connie Bowen. I am the founder of Farmhand Ventures. We're more of an ag tech investor, but very philosophically aligned. I also want to preempt this last couple minutes of our discussion with Zach and I could talk about ethical farm finance for like probably a couple days, I would say. But we are going to plan on find the guy with the hat at lunch, and we'll keep this conversation going. We're not going to have time for audience questions. I do want to, though, use our last 3 minutes, does that feel right? For Zach, for you to tie this concept of courageous finance for producers directly to our startup industry here, because the way that I think about startup adoption on the farm side is it's just a different practice change, really. I don't really distinguish that much on the farm adoption side between regenerative practice adoption or novel crop production and ag tech adoption. So I'd love for you to, again, kind of concisely explain to the ag tech folks in this audience why they ought to be advocating for this farm gate finance.
You bet. You're probably sussing out that concision isn't one of my strengths, but I'll try. If we have producers that have money in their pocket, after they sell their production and settle their accounts, they are potential investors in your ag tech businesses. They are certainly more willing and able customers for your ag tech businesses. But when you have a producer who takes his record feeder calf check to the bank, and the bank says, hey, this looks like a good year for you to catch up on all this debt. Why don't you pay this down? And he has to plan his whole year's operation on how much he can borrow back. That isn't a recipe for building business opportunity for you all in the ag tech sector and getting producers to adopt your virtual fencing or your new methane analysis, whatever that might be. So having ag finance structured in a way that leaves capital in the producer's hands, in our rural communities, in our rural banks for a longer period of time is going to be key to driving this innovation, because we're seeing very clearly with the cuts that are happening to the agency that I love and the department that I think we all need, we're not getting investment from the federal government in solutions in agriculture. You guys have a terrific champion here in North Dakota in Senator Hoeven, and he pushes every day for that. But we need more folks that see the long-term perspective and have a vision for investing in ag finance for the long haul.
And I think that's a great transition. You're starting to get into, again, join us for lunch during the lunch break, and we'll keep talking about this, but this intersection of public, private, finance to actually enable us to move into a future of agriculture that is great for farmers, great for folks who work on farms, great for folks who work in ag tech, and great for all of these ecosystem service providers around it. So please join me in thanking Zach Ducheneau and giving him a round of applause, and I'll keep us on track.
Thank you all. 605-222-3852. Please call me. I welcome the conversations.
Thank you, Connie and Zach. I'm excited to introduce the next panel conversation. As somebody who started their career in an agricultural cooperative, I'm excited for the conversations that are going to take place. To lead that conversation, I'd like to bring up Executive Director Will Adderholt. There you go.
And I would like to call up to the stage Gary Halverson from CHS, Alex Richard from Maple River Cooperative, Amy Robach from Central Soda Cooperative, and Brent Weisenberger from AgTegra Cooperative. So what I would say is one thing that's really special, and there are some other industries that have this, but the cooperative model, the ability to have a group that is dedicated to serving farmers throughout a region and making sure that they have the infrastructure, the advocates driving every day to help them be successful. These cooperatives every day are helping to take on these challenges and the unique complexity of agriculture and find solutions. I'm going to have each of these panelists introduce themselves, and then we're going to get into questions. And I am going to bring it into the audience for questions as well as we get going. So, Gary?
Good morning, everyone. Gary Halverson, proud North Dakota native. I've been at CHS since 1999, and my current responsibility is to lead the sales teams for the company.
Good morning. I am Amy Robach. So I work with a co-op in central Minnesota called Central Soda Co-op, if anyone is familiar with that one. We are a relatively smaller co-op. One thing that is unique about our co-op is that we have an environmental services division, and I am the manager of that co-op. So we operate like a soil and water district, and we have a team of people that services farmers across the state.
Brent Weisenberger, Director of Ag Technology Services for AgTegra Cooperative. Been leading our digital strategy since the beginning of my career 32 years ago.
My name is Alex Richard with Maple River Co-op. Our main location's in Castleton, next to the Grand Farm. We have locations from really right outside of Valley City down to Ross, and we service our farmers through those locations with grain and agronomy services, get on the farm gate level as much as we can. So.
And so I prepped this panel last week on how we're going to be able to run this through, or earlier this week. And what we're going to have them do is chime in where they feel comfortable, and then we'll have follow-up questions and things like that as we get going. Cooperatives have a unique opportunity to be able to engage with the farmers throughout their region and their footprints in understanding those challenges like I mentioned. And so there's also this unique forecast and ability to see the landscape as it's changing. As agriculture has moved into this digital era and is continuing to evolve, what is the role of cooperatives in that change?
I guess I'll start, but we kind of see the cooperative as an extension of the farm. We need to serve our patrons. We need to recognize the trends that are happening year over year, try to stay ahead of them. And a big part of that, when we talk about staying ahead of them, is just the pace at which the farm is operating at this point in time. It seems like we have to do more in a smaller window of time. So we need to do it efficiently, try to put some technology out there to make it easier for us and maybe a little bit less labor intensive at the same time. Thank you, Alex.
Yeah, and I think taking some of the pain points out of the farm as far as digital data collection, that sort of thing. We talk about sustainability programs here this morning on a couple of the panels, and making that painless transition on gathering some of that data and helping them provide that information to the consumers as well.
I guess I'll take it from the environmental services. So at our co-op, we took it to the next step, or looking into the next era of strategic services, and taking a look at how do we improve that profitability on that farm gate, not only from the farm gate side, but also from the cooperative side. So how do we stay relative in a growing space? And then taking those interests not only from the producer, but what's looking at government regulation, what's looking at from the consumer side, what's looking at the pressures of the processors. And then taking a look at all these environmental programs that are out there, the carbon markets, the water quality incentives, and then how can digital agriculture help us in that? And then we formulated this whole team, right, to help service that. And with all of that, we can help scale outcomes faster, more efficient with our partners. So I always like to say we don't want to discount the NRCS, the soil and water districts, the nonprofits out there. We want to work with them closely side by side to help achieve their goals at a more faster, scalable outcome. So that's one approach that we've done at our co-op that took us into that next era with the help of digital agriculture.
Alex, you mentioned the quickening pace is what it sounded like. Can you elaborate? Can you spend a couple, or like 30 seconds elaborating on what you're seeing and the pressures that creates with the farmer?
Yeah, I guess when we look at it from, starting in like the spring planting season, it seems like everybody used to have a 30 to 40 foot planter, used to go 4 or 5 miles an hour, and now we were able to keep ahead of those planters with, one floater could probably keep ahead of 3 or 4 planters. Now we have some planters that are 66 feet, 88 feet wide, doing 8 to 10 miles an hour, and they could be outpacing our fertilizer spreading equipment, right? So we have to look at faster ways to get stuff done, whether that's with bigger equipment, more technology, the logistics support behind it to keep it going. And then you get into a fall season where we have to dump grain for 2 to 3 weeks during a soybean harvest, maybe 45 days for corn harvest. We have to be able to maintain those paces. So speed and space is a big thing we need to do, and need to do it efficiently.
Takes a disproportionate amount of capital to provide the services, to operate the supply chain, to make sure the inventory is there the day the farmer needs it. Around our shop, we often say that spring is going to happen every year. We just don't know when it's going to happen. And we're trying to keep up with a lot of antiquated equipment, and the farmers are able to invest and go faster and faster. 1966 was mentioned earlier. A John Deere planter in a 40/20 could plant 80 acres of corn a day. And now we plant 80 acres an hour. And so that's the scale which Alex is referring to. And we're finding ourselves having to shift the way we invest capital to try and stay in front of farmers and trying to manage long lead supply chains in global agriculture is extremely difficult.
So that's going to lead me to my next question. Thank you, Gary. And I want to understand a little bit about how you're prioritizing that. With the advanced amount of capital needed, you have to make a decision of where you're going to spend that, what you're going to prioritize for your farmers. How are you deciding that?
Capital planning for us is a never-ending exercise, and so with multiple divisions, and we all would nod and say we have, our ag side or energy sides. We've got grain divisions and agronomy divisions. So the first place that we invest working capital is to make sure the inventory is there, so the farmer can actually get the goods that they need, the services they need, and then it's a matter of finding the best returns. And for CHS, our weighted average cost of capital is just under 6%, so good projects for us would be up in the 17-18% range. And so we try and apply a great deal of discipline to allocate the capital to places where it can work. It can sweat a little harder on behalf of the entire company and our owners.
How do you, a lot of the people in this room are also looking to bring forward innovations and thinking about ways to take on some of the challenge of quickening pace and even serve cooperatives like yourselves. How are you identifying opportunities to work with emerging technology and then being able to evaluate how to bring that into your organizations?
For Integra, we've got on the sales side, for instance, my team, I've got a team of 5. If it comes to digital offerings at Integra, we just, have the conversations with those startups, identify growers that we know do a good job with data collection and are open to new things, right? Whether it fails fast or if it succeeds. And we just take it from start to finish. Most of the time, we'll turn that even into an intern project in the summertime. And it tends to work out pretty good in the end.
At our co-op, we have a precision agronomy manager, and then what we like to do is we also like to bring those technologies into our co-op. We bring it to their team, we might bring it to the environmental services team, but we also bring in our crop advisors. So at the farm gate, the crop advisor is that trusted advisor. So we need to have them on board as well to make sure that this is going to be a successful placement of that product. So as long as everyone's on board, we can go ahead and move that product to the farm gate with a specific group of growers. And then once again, it might turn into an intern project. It might turn into a long-term research project on that organization. And then also we do have partnerships with the universities within Minnesota. So we might go and approach them. We might go approach the Minnesota Department of Agriculture or NRCS to try to place these products more above and beyond within partnerships. So that's kind of the approach that Central Soda has taken over the last few years, and it seems to be really successful.
For us, what a good panel. These guys are great. So we, on the commercial side, have a process very much like you would have described. Additionally, we operate a venture capital fund that we share with Growmark, another large cooperative, and that venture capital fund is built to find emerging technologies, to vet them fully, to invest in them, and then hopefully, as they grow, to commercialize those tools and products inside the entire cooperative system. So we have an additional wrinkle to how we think about the space, additionally to just how you might commercialize it closest to the farm.
I would add that for all the startups in the room as well, when you come and approach ag retail cooperative, come with what it's going to mean for the grower. Number 1, return on investment for the grower. Number 2, on our sales staff, is it going to make their lives easier or harder? If you can't answer those 2 questions, probably not going to make the cut.
Well, that's a really important intelligence in how we continue to refine how we bring that story forward. Mm-hmm. Going back, there's that discussion of the quickening pace brought forward by Alex and Brent and Amy. It sounds like there's a pretty strong support mechanism within your organizations, and I believe Gary hit on it as well with CHS, to evaluate these technologies, bring them forward. But there's also the challenge of that internal education. As these technologies are advancing so quickly, What does that look like to keep your staff apprised of all this technology coming forward, and to make sure that they have the ability to properly evaluate the technology you're bringing into your organizations?
You know, I guess I would kind of go to, a lot of times we look at field trials, you know, try to prove the technology, make sure our sales staff would be confident selling a product. If we claim we get a 10 bushel increase on corn, let's prove it. Let's prove it in our area. You know, try to get those things through a field trial. And that's something that those trials are always difficult because they happen in the peak season, right? You're trying to get a farmer to, hey, put this jug of this in there, in this area, try to get some replicated trials. Doesn't always happen. We've had that situation where we talked to a producer about it, and he said, oh, I forgot to put the jug in the planter, you know, or whatever it is. So that's a difficult, you know, we got to prove it first is probably the big thing. So we always like to see the science and, you know, the idea behind the product, but we just have to make sure it's a proven product too.
I feel like I'm always having to remind my team that we have to look forward, right, not backwards. And like if there's really great things that we want to bring, products, I wrap it into goals for them for the next year. I often get the deer in the headlights look when I say we're going to do this, and then we're going to do this, and then we're going to do this. And I think they get pretty frustrated at times, but I mean, that's our jobs, find these new innovative products. So.
Yeah, one approach we've taken at the co-op is we do internal learning events. So we'll do specific learning events based off if it's products, if it's conservation education. So we've started spring conservation education events. We might bring in individualized speakers talking about soil health cover crops. And we give them only small bits of pieces of information that they need to know. And then they need to know who to direct their questions to. And we give them handouts so they can keep it on their desk, keep it on their computers. We have Teams drives, we have recorded video messages. We're doing a whole lots of things to make it easy for our crop advisors to access information very quickly. And they only need to know little bits of pieces and then who to contact. So we make it not a burdensome for them. And then we've hosted these events. And it seems to be successful in adoption, at least from our side of the world, when it's new information being brought to them.
I do want to provide an opportunity to have the audience be able to ask questions. We've got about 10 minutes remaining, so a few questions from the audience. Otherwise, I can keep bringing things forward.
Two-part question. What are you most excited about, piece of technology that you're trying or to help advance catching up with the farmer? And then what's been the biggest challenge, if you have any experience, adopting, say, See and Spray with the supply chain and ordering chemicals that you don't typically use with acres? You understand that one?
I'll touch on the most excited one. I can't touch on the second part. I'll let someone else touch on that. So we are working with a company called AquaSpy, and the reason we started working with this company is because if anyone's familiar with Minnesota, we have a lot with nitrates in our groundwater. So we were looking for a company to monitor real-time nitrogen nitrates in the ground and get accurate readings. So that is the company that our co-op has moved to, and we have adoption with the Minnesota Department of Agriculture as well. And they have field trials. We have field trials with a couple colleges as well. So that's what we're internally really excited about, because now we can monitor nitrates pretty much every 15 minutes with growers.
We're actively running a pilot, a 150,000 acre pilot, northeast Nebraska, 2 companies, Earth Optics and Tyrannus, to do a better job of infield scouting using advanced telematics and applying that to you know, a day in the life of the farmer. And we see a real positive application for both those tools working in concert, and we're really excited about the product thus far.
I would say for me, the most exciting thing I think is the advent and the speed that AI is helping to bring into the software development space. We've mentioned data a few times this morning. The truth is that these systems still aren't communicating properly. There's errors in APIs just about every day from our perspective. And I think AI is going to help speed that development up over the next couple of years, where this stuff that we're talking about actually works. So I'm excited about that. On the See and Spray side, we're still evaluating that technology. I think they had a little bit of work to do. We bought one of the first sprayers that came out, and we quite frankly saw some efficacy issues with plants actually dying because of the angle of the spray nozzle actually just spraying half the plant, right? So I think they're working on improving some of that stuff, but I mean, Bayer Crop Science can't bring us brand new technology, and we kind of kill the plant, and it survives, and all of a sudden we got the speed to resistance in the future could be exponential if this stuff doesn't work, right? So.
Yep, I think I'd reiterate the AI side is probably the biggest explosion that we could see. Trying to process, I think in the last 10 years we've done good with data, but how do we use that data is what we've done poorly with, right? We have all sorts of data collection methods, whether it's ERPs or stuff coming out of our applicators, but trying to get that into a trend or a usable piece of information, either from a business side or passing it on to a customer, patron, to try to use that in a fungible way.
One more question from the audience. I don't know if the microphone's going to make it out there, but yep.
The question was bringing new salespeople into the organization, how we onboard them, how do we get them started, what's that look like? It's changed a lot. 30 years ago, we would get folks from great universities, and they would come to us with, a passion about crop and weed sciences, and that's a terrific place to start, but the crop doesn't buy anything, and the weed doesn't deal with itself. It's the farmer that matters. And so then we'd spent a couple of years trying to get them really onboarded to a day in the life of somebody that can impact the farmer positively, being a trusted partner, not just the tool and the resource, but actually solving problems in the field. And today we see, new efforts at a lot of universities to teach some of the soft skills that are needed to be productive in industry. And so young people are coming to us with the same passion to be productive, but they're coming with a better foundation of training most often. To need less time onboarding and be more impactful day one helps us get a return on the investment for the person faster.
I would say that would reiterate that too, but we also try to get something that the salesman can relate to the farmer, that they can talk with the farmer on an intelligent level. One thing we've done is we've brought in some people out of school with 4-year degrees, but we put them in operations first before they step foot on a farm, depending on their experience background. But we'll put them in operations to see how our business operates first, to see how we can service that patron. And that seemed to be a good way to do it. The last couple salesmen that we've had on our team have come out of our operations, actually, with the precision degree. Precision agronomy, mostly.
So I do want to make sure that I reiterate the role of the cooperative in this conversation, the conduit to the grower, groups that serve the growers that are part of their organizations who have huge stakes in the work you're doing, as well as the advocacy you're bringing forward by producing value-added opportunities and ways to increase the value of their work. And make sure that they can be successful. A lot of the challenges that we're seeing are acute, rising input costs, lower commodity prices this year especially. And so thank you for the work that you're doing. And I would be remiss if I didn't say that I believe all of you are partners in the work that we're doing. And I do want to give a shout out to CHS. CHS was one of the first 2 organizations to bring plots out to the Grand Farm and really shaped our vision for how we can demonstrate and validate technologies and really helped us understand the importance of that to the growers, to make sure that they could see the technology in action in real-world environments that would matter to them. So thank you all for being on this panel.
Thank you.
Different questions.
Thank you so much. There we go. Thank you so much, everybody. That was a great panel, fascinating discussion. One of my favorite parts of my job is getting to meet people and also getting to work with a great team, which includes the Johnny Mann. So I'm going to welcome up Johnny Mann to introduce our next round of startups for the startup pitches. And while Johnny is walking up here, let's give him a round of applause, because there's not many guys in this room that could pull off that hair and that suit. So Johnny, the floor is yours.
I'm back. I'm obligated to say that my girlfriend did find this for me, and it was a thrift shop find, and I think it's worked out all right. So we've been talking a lot about nitrogen, and one of the pain points is getting it in the right place at the right time. And the next startup we're going to hear from is Sentinel Ag and Jackson Sansel to talk about exactly how they do that. Let's welcome him to the stage.
Well, good morning, everybody. I'm Jackson Sansel. I'm the founder and CEO at Sentinel Ag, where we're empowering decisive agronomy for every season. Kyle did a great job earlier covering some of the problems that we're facing when it comes to inputs. Right now, prices are more volatile than they've ever been, and producers and agronomists are really feeling that stress. When it comes to environmental stewardship, we're starting to see that manifest itself in terms of policy and regulation that's limiting how fertilizers and water can be applied. And ultimately, all this is underpinned by the agronomy risk that agronomists and producers are taking on. Every field's different, every season is different, every crop is different, and managing that and the dynamics that it places on fertilizer and water is really difficult. That's why we have built the Sentinel platform. This technology is really built to help manage this multidimensional risk that producers are facing with these inputs of nutrients and water. We provide decision support for timing, rate, and placement of these important inputs. The technology was developed at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln and proven through on-farm trials. We have 4 different tiers to the platform that are built for different production systems, our most popular of which is Sentinel Advanced, which is really built for intensive nitrogen management. We work across different cropping systems that are important in different growing regions of the U.S., but importantly, we've solved major challenges, including that we don't operate off of a yield goal. We actually dynamically adjust to yield potential. We don't require labor or hardware to make this system work. We're able to get fields set up in less than a minute, and ultimately, we're providing daily site-specific insights on every field. The technology was built with the philosophy that full season management is going to be required for inputs down the road, and so we've built capabilities that are designed to help make those full season decisions. Our in-time insights track nitrogen sufficiency on a near daily basis, and they help to inform 2 really important questions. 1, do I need to apply additional inputs? And 2, when is the right time to apply those additional inputs? We've also integrated satellite imagery and other sorts of agronomically important data to help us adjust rates and place those in the field so we can forecast rates out, help with buying decisions, help with these placement decisions, and really help make the optimal decisions when it comes to nitrogen and water. Lastly, we also help with identifying risk, which is really important when it comes to nitrogen losses. We're able to integrate soil moisture maps into our system to allow us to spatially identify where we might be experiencing leaching or denitrification losses as well. We've seen really consistent results with this technology in corn over the past 4 commercial growing seasons. This isn't just in trials, these are on commercial fields. We've improved nitrogen use efficiency 20 to 26%. We've saved $27 to $40 an acre on nitrogen costs, and when you couple that with the yield improvements that we've seen, this is a $59 per acre profitability improvement for farms, which this year might be the difference between a profitable year and a year with loss. To show you a little bit about what this means for an individual farm, take Cornhusker Farms. They started with us to monitor Pivot Bio on their farm to figure out if it was actually working, and they like the technology so much they've scaled it up across every one of the corn acres on their farm, nearly 2,500 acres. And over the past 4 growing seasons, we've been able to generate over $650,000 in return for this farm as they've continued growing. The use cases for this technology are not just in agronomy, they're also product development and sales enablement for alternatives and biologicals. It's in soil health and sustainability, taking some of the risk out of adopting these soil health practices that really impact input management. It's also supply chain resilience, understanding where that fertilizer demand is and making sure that we have availability to get it to the fields that it needs to be on. We sell to agronomy services organizations, we sell to companies that provide software for agronomy, and we also sell direct to grower for those large farms as well as those new markets. We are actively looking for additional folks to partner with. Momentum is building. We've grown 2.5x every year since we've been in business in 2022. We have 97% distributor retention, and we've grown our distribution network 51% in the last 6 months based on these sorts of outcomes. As we look to go forward, we are very confident in our nitrogen decision support capabilities. We're integrating soil moisture and helping with irrigation and directed scouting right now, and we hope to continue building crop nutrition and protection capabilities that build on what we have today. I'd love to talk to any of you more that want to learn more about what we're doing, and I really appreciate the time this morning. Thank you very much.
Grand Farm grows about 12 different crops on the farm. Might be 13, might be 14. Ask Ann. It's pretty complex, so if you see Brendan Van Vetchel, give him a pat on the back. He does great work. I think one of the most beautiful crops that we produce on the farm this year and last year is hemp. So I'd like to welcome Wendy Mosher to the stage to talk about New West Genetics and how they're revolutionizing hemp for farmers in the Red River Valley.
Thank you. You had the magic one. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me, Grand Farm. It's a pleasure to be here. Amazing talks. I have a lot of questions and comments for everybody on the panel, so thank you for spending your time doing this. I'm here to talk about a crop that is likely not in your rotation, but it should be. The majority of the innovations that we see address existing rotations and make them more efficient, which is very important. However, we are here to suggest that this kind of change makes a more impact. So we all know these numbers. This isn't strange to any of us. I really respect this farmer that spoke in front of the Senate Ag Committee and said nothing pencils out, and told them about her 4th consecutive year of negative margins. The numbers, again, are not new to us. But let's look at, this isn't just a brief cycle, right? This has become a systemic crisis. So let's look at some of the dynamics behind it. We know that the majors have tripled profits over the last 3 years, while farm margins are down. We know that the input costs are raising. There's an inverse relationship here, right? So farms, again, don't have the pricing power. And ag tech as a solve is phenomenal, but it has a ceiling. Precision ag is adopted by only about 27% of farms in the US, and that's because you need to have scale, right, to adopt, and we don't want to forget our smaller farmers. And GE traits we love, we're geneticists, but in general, what we've seen, they're protecting, they're not creating new yield necessarily, and you can't argue that that value is staying with the majors, right, when we look at margins now. So we say it's too late for incremental tweaks. Let's make a bold change. Wouldn't it be nice if we had a market for this bold change? So I'm going to talk more about renewable diesel and SAF, which you heard Anna so eloquently talk about today. That $50 billion is just for oil seeds serving this market. Oil seeds are the most efficient way to create renewable diesel. And I'm not talking, this is not biodiesel, it's not ethanol, it's a different product. They cannot get enough. I've sat in the boardrooms in Houston. They cannot get enough. They're very scared for 2030. So EU is actively fining for non-compliance now. The bottleneck is this feedstock shortage. So economically viable feedstocks are scarce. In a lot of these jurisdictions, not all, so not 45Z, right? But a lot of them, soy or palm don't qualify, or they have caps. Qualifying oil seeds are suffering from low yields, right? And just new adoption curves. They can't offer that sufficient ROI across the supply chain yet. They're getting better. but there right now are no economically viable feedstocks except Amplify hybrids. So, Amplify is a hybrid hemp oilseed. Hemp is an oilseed. It outcompetes any other oilseed in yield of oil per acre, which is what matters the most to these fuel companies. So if you look at that data on the right, this is third-party conducted trials across the Midwest and Northern Tier. And then Amplify is dropping across the supply chain. So we've bred it for existing on-farm equipment. It is the closest in seed size to soy. So it eliminates that handability issue that some of the brassicas have. And we've been confirmed that it's drop-in for fuel. So majors have tested and sampled and said, yes, this works. It's commercial now. We've been commercial for a while. So here's some proof points. You can see we've been operating for 12 years. It takes time to bring a new seed genetic to market. If you look at the right side, this is a strip trial that was conducted in Montana last year on very marginal land. Next to us on the left are competitor genetics. You can see the strip of Amplify. And adjacent to this field was a field of spring camelina. This is after 3 hail events. That region got pummeled last year. The camelina was completely destroyed. Amplify averaged 2,900 pounds an acre. That's the power of a hybrid system. So you can see, we are raising, of course, but you can see the core team comes from a variety of companies you've heard of. Our advisory team brings 100 more years of experience across ag business, regulatory, seed genetics. You can see the use of funds. $5 million goes to a commercial funnel that includes existing fuel majors. So we are actively not only breeding seed genetics, but building the demand. You heard a couple of people say today that you have to have the offtake, the demand, if you're bringing a new crop to market. And so we built that demand with the fuel majors. We have 2 LOIs in hand for a 10-year offtakes. We've got these US incentives live. The RINs are working. 45Z hopefully will start paying out within the next few months. And the EU is actively fighting for non-compliance. So the market is pulling, and we're ready to run with something that's commercial. Yep. So we're not just here for capital, and actually we're here for strategic partnership even more. No one company changes the supply chain. We understand that. We have small scale in place, so we've been operating for 4 years within the existing hemp grain for food system. We never sell seed unless the farm has an offtake, and we facilitate that with our processor partners. We need the next scaled partners, though. So if you are a mid-sized crush, which I realize doesn't really exist, if there happens to be one here today, I would love to meet you. If you are a mid-sized or even large-scale farm co-op, I truly believe there's a huge opportunity here for farm co-ops to get in and have some more control and help farms take back some of the pricing. I promise you that these joint development agreements that New West is working with the fuel majors does not skip the farm. We have educated them endlessly for about 3 years that we've been having this conversation with them, that they have to provide a premium to the farm if they want this off the ground. So please come partner with us. We'd love to include you in those conversations. Thank you. It's time for a bold change. Come find me.
Thank you, Wendy. With the proliferation of spray drones, we've had a lot more questions on application in drift and how effective are we at applying pesticides. The next company is going to come and talk about the insights that they can provide and save farmers money on chemical and increase efficacy. Let's welcome Darren Krantz from AgZen to the stage.
Thanks, John. My name's Darren Krantz with AgZen, and over the next 5 minutes, I'd like to convince you as an industry that we need to stop spraying blind. You may ask yourself what I mean by that statement. We have been spraying the same way since the 1940s, largely measured in application rates in gallons per acre. When you spray it at 15 gallons per acre, you are spraying over 1 billion droplets. And to date, not the chemical companies, not the sprayer manufacturers, not the nozzle manufacturers, no one can tell you how many of those droplets land on your intended target, either the weed leaf or the plant leaf. And the first thing that we did at AgZen was we asked ourselves, does coverage matter? And we worked with universities and did trials and found that emphatically, yes, coverage does matter. The second thing we did is we asked ourselves, does coverage matter more than GPA? And again, we confirmed, yes, coverage measures more than GPA. So if coverage matters that much, why aren't we measuring it? And so we set out to do just that. Our product is a camera that can be mounted on any sprayer boom, from a pull type sprayer to the latest 2026 John Deere See & Spray Ultimate machine. That camera functions more like a microscope. We can see droplets 3 feet into the canopy. We have a camera running in front of the boom and a camera running behind the boom to get a pre-spray picture, a post-spray picture, and then we look at the two and figure out where did the droplets land. If you were to take high-speed video of an applicator applying a pesticide, you would find that many of those droplets don't reach their intended target. Droplets drift, droplets bounce off. Fundamentally, what we are trying to do is if you spray 100 droplets, we are trying to tell you how many of those droplets did you get on the intended target. Most growers would find they might hit 20 of those 100 droplets on the target. And then what we're doing is we are providing you recommendations based on all the data that we have on how to adjust your sprayer, change your nozzles, change your adjuvants in order to get 40 of those droplets to stick to the plant. And once we do that, we ask ourselves, can instead of spraying those 100 droplets, can we spray 50 and still end up with more droplets on the plant than you started with, thereby saving the producer cost? Spraying is complicated. There are all kinds of adjustments. For those of you in the sprayer business, you know this. There are all kinds of things that affect coverage, from speed, from boom height, to pressure, to nozzles, to adjuvants. This is the exact sort of recommendations that we give to the operator in the cab, as well as anyone looking online. All of this data is available to a remote manager as well as the operator. What the value story is for our product is better control and better cost savings. We are typically seeing cost savings in the range of 30 to 50% and better efficacy with the products that are being used, because we are the only company in the world that can tell you exactly what your coverage is. We've got this on 1 million acres. Last year, we're looking to do 2 million this year. On average, our customers increase their coverage 2.5 times. Every single one of those customers made changes in how they spray based on our product to get those sorts of results. Our ROI is pretty simple. For a 5,000 acre soybean grower, that product pays for itself in 1 year. And so when it comes to payback, we believe we have an excellent value proposition for both the farmer as well as the ag retailer, virtually anybody that sprays. So with that, I would conclude by just saying, if you are a farmer looking to lower your application cost, if you are an ag retailer looking to minimize your resprays. If you're a sprayer manufacturer looking to better the performance of your sprayer, or a crop input company looking to improve the efficacy of your products, we'd love to talk. Thank you very much.
Our next presenter will be Mariah Johnson. Mariah holds a BS in Ag Economics from Oklahoma State University, a master's in Ag Economics, and a PhD in Animal Science from Texas A&M University. Grew up on a cattle, wheat, and soybean farm in Oklahoma that she remains involved with today. She is also the Vice President of Sustainability at Farm Credit Services of America, as well as a Board of Director at the U.S. Roundtable for Sustainable Beef. Please join me in welcoming Mariah to the stage.
Well, good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you. Like Matt said, I lead our sustainability efforts not only at Farm Credit Services of America, but Ag Country Farm Credit Services and Frontier Farm Credit. I'm really pleased and excited today. There's a bunch of folks from our associations here, so if you'd raise your hands and just show how many people are here from our associations, that would be really great. So these are all lenders who are steeped in agriculture knowledge. They stay up to date, and that's why people come to us, is because of our agriculture knowledge, because we know how to apply that to lending. We are a part of the greater Farm Credit System. We are also a cooperative. The Farm Credit System extends across the entire United States and is comprised of 55 local lending cooperatives. So when you think about the typical banker, we're a little bit different than that. Because we're a cooperative, everything that we make above and beyond what we need to operate goes back into the pockets of our customers. We are owned by our customers. And so we work in service for them and look to bring opportunities forward for them every single day. And so when I started within Farm Credit about 4 years ago, we heard a lot of folks from industry and from non-governmental organizations, and they could be a little bit crass, right? They could say, if you could just fix agricultural lending, then there would be no problem getting sustainability and stewardship activities adopted and scaled across the country. Wasn't sure that was quite right, and we've been on a quest to figure that out, because you talk to many of our folks that are on the front lines and working with our producers, our customers every day. Those customers would say, even in sustainability specifically, that over 60% say that we do very well in serving their needs around sustainable agriculture. 60% is great, but also, is there an opportunity? What can we do more in? And so we set out to try and understand that better. I'm really fortunate. We have a fantastic customer insights team, research team that I've been able to work with twice now as we've been looking to study this. And so in 2024, we did a survey of over 350 folks across 10 different states, much of it here in the Great Plains and across the Midwest, asking about what were they doing in sustainable agriculture, what were they interested in doing, and what were their barriers, specifically as it relates to finance. Just a few months ago, we issued this same survey again, but this time working with additional farm credit partners from Compeer, American Ag Credit, Farm Credit East, CoBank, and many across the system. And we surveyed 550 folks across 23 different states. So we have a really robust data set and an understanding of what producers are looking for with specifics to finance. And so what we saw when we asked them about this is we got really deep and down in the weeds and asked them about 26 different practices or activities, and I would say activities too, because it's not always practice-based. Those were lumped into 6 different categories. And the really impressive thing is that by and large, everybody is doing something. 99% of the folks are engaged in at least one activity around sustainability and stewardship. The bulk of them, as you can see, 97% are doing something in soil health. You have a lot that are using precision agriculture. You have many who have made facility upgrades, whether that's for energy efficiency. It might be for animal handling and livestock welfare, but it also could be for employee safety. There's been improvements in uptake in grazing management, manure handling systems, water systems. And in just that 2-year short time period, we saw a 10% jump on average across all of these different areas of the ways that folks were engaging and participating in that. We also asked them, how are you getting this done financially? No surprise, right? Many are going to USDA, to the NRCS. Zach talked about FSA. 50% of them are going there. But who's their second partner? It's their lender. And it's their lender as it stands today, even without any specific programs. Our lending is getting it done. Again, not to say that we can't investigate and look for opportunities to do more and hear these pain points. Then you have a smattering from other areas, whether that's payments for practices, outcomes, or grants. But another interesting point is that there's been just a 30% jump in those short 2 years of producers figuring out how to make this work financially. When we asked about those barriers, the good news was those barriers had gone down. Now, have they gone down a drastic amount? You can see that there's still a lot of barriers out there that can be addressed. Some of them not always financial, but we certainly wanted to look at that. So the leading one was around uncertainty if the investment will work. So we're hearing about many of these different ag tech and novel technologies. They're uncertain if they're going to work like they say they're going to work. Will I get the boost or the improvement that they say will happen? Will that actually happen in my field? Is that the learning curve that I will go through? Associated with that, right, is what are the economics, and oftentimes what is the local economics around that? It can be hard to find the economics of what does that mean for my region here in North Dakota or Nebraska or Kansas or Wisconsin. They have that unclear or low ROI, and it's not just ROI. We talk about that a lot of times, but we need to know what's the impact of my profitability this year. Because I can't think about ROI in a payback period if I can't get past this year and make a profit. They have a need for different equipment oftentimes. And then interesting, they say there's an inability to use existing capital. And this is really tied back to those first couple of items. They're going to place capital, and they're going to put capital to work in places that are more certain, more sure. And so there's not an excess, we've heard about that, there's not a lot of excess capital running around on these operations. And so they're not putting it into these more risky areas. Additionally, they're looking for access to new capital or additional funding sources, and it's not always that they can't come back to their lender and gain more access to capital, but they're probably trying to find cheaper capital or ways to blend capital together so that it gets it at a rate that helps that economics work. So this one quote from a producer sums it up really well, right? We have a mortgage on the farm, on our home, and on the tractor, plus our daily needs. There just isn't much more to go around. And so over the past couple of years, we've been working to identify how can we be that partner and continue to evolve, because that's, as an institution, as a Farm Credit, it's what we're always looking for. How can we be that better partner in serving agriculture? And I would be remiss to not say we have a fantastic innovation team that I have had the chance to work with every day too, that really helps to bring many of these opportunities forward and test them out. So over the past year or so, we've been working on the Stewardship Fund. And so the Stewardship Fund thinks about also how can we partner with industry, because that was something that we heard loud and clear. Industry wants to partner with finance, with those that are already doing the financial work every day and deploying capital out to the farms. How can we streamline that? How can we make it easier for producers, for them to access these different sources of capital and put it all together for them? So we want to be that partner, and we want to come along. So bringing in outside capital from these companies that have an interest in seeing many of these technologies that are being talked about deployed on farming and ranching operations. Farm Credit, we're working closely with those producers every single day, and we know their operations inside and out. And so if we think about someone who wants to, say, invest in one of these new technologies or a piece of equipment, you can pick your item. There's a price tag associated with that. And so let's think about Joe, and I'll give you an example, and you can plug in your own numbers and your own example. But Joe wants to go buy an air seeder. Pricey little piece. What if he could come in to Farm Credit, and because that helps to align to advancing the industry forward around sustainability and stewardship, they could get 20% of that upfront capital need from the stewardship, from capital from those outside partners. That could help cover a down payment. It provides that upfront capital, so they're not having to wait and get paid back later. It's helping to get advanced to lower that risk. They don't have to take capital out of their pocket to put this into work, but they can just get it and go. That's paired together with their Farm Credit loan. And so together, those funding sources move. They go out. Joe starts using the equipment. He uses that air seeder and puts that into place. And I want to emphasize, too, this is not just for the new adoption of something, but we've worked really hard to make sure that this is for the continuation, too. Because we hear that loud and clear from farmers that that is a pain point. That is, we don't want things that are not to help me keep going, to help me keep improving and moving forward in agriculture. So as Joe puts that air seeder into use, if that company wants, he might share some information back with them. But also with this, he would repay that farm credit loan over time, but he's also going to repay those dollars into the stewardship fund. When he does that, that's at a 0% interest. And so yeah, he's repaying those dollars, but it's at that 0% interest, helping to give a bump to some of that economics. It's essentially bringing down the overall interest rate for them. And who doesn't love a lower interest rate, right? And so as those dollars come back in to the stewardship fund, they can then be redeployed out and work again and again and again into perpetuity on behalf of all of these farmers and ranchers across the company, or across the country. And so that's an opportunity to provide this tailored financing that producers have been asking for. So this is something we've been actively working towards. We have worked heavily over the past 9 months with PepsiCo. They have been a fantastic partner in this, and thinking about how we take it from this high concept to actually delivering this out to farmers and ranchers. And so again, that stewardship fund can help address, not completely solve, but address and puts another financial mechanism. We're not saying that the current financial mechanisms need to go away, but advocating that we need to have multiple financial mechanisms out there for producers to meet the moment and the need that they have. And as I mentioned, we've been working also across that farm credit system, scaling this for impact. You can see that on the map here. We're looking towards bringing a pilot to bear this fall, and so likely going forward either up in this region with sugar beets or in Iowa for corn producers. Regardless of where it is, both of these areas are of high interest. The long-term vision being that we can bring this to scale across the farm credit system and bring opportunities for all the commodities that we finance, from cattle to hogs to chickens to all the crops that we've talked about today. That's our vision, and so we'd love to see more companies come into it, more participants. And so if you're interested in that, feel free to give me a holler or any one of the rest of our team. Thank you.
Thank you, Mariah. Fantastic presentation and even more fantastic jacket. So we really appreciate that. You're doing fantastic work. All right, the last speaker between you and lunch, which is always a great spot to be, right, Bob, is Bob Stark. He is the VP of Agronomy Services for Interplant Inc. If you don't know who they are, Bob's going to do a great job at highlighting it, but it's very fascinating. So, Bob, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you. Really appreciate the chance to be here today. And it's always great to be the person between you and the magic dinner bell. I mean, that is really where you want to be. So today I want to just introduce the company a little bit. Myself, again, my name is Bob Starkey. I am the VP of Agronomy based in St. Louis, and I work for a company called Interplant. Interplant is a small startup based out of Davis, California, started in 2018. And really, as I thought about today and the pain points that we were trying to solve here, the pain points that we're trying to solve is that we don't know when plants are stressed until it's too late. Whenever plants get stressed, they understand it, they know it, they have genes in there that kick on, and they start to communicate, or they can communicate to us when they are stressed. And so what I want to do today is really step back first. I'm going to hold the technology till the end. And I'm going to start off by talking a little bit about how do we communicate this to growers? How do we work with this through farmers? How do we talk to them? Because there are many different stresses that a plant feels, that a plant has. It could be nutrient. It could be they're getting attacked by fungi. They could be getting attacked by viruses. There's a lot of different things that they can get attacked by. But what we want to do is we want to communicate to growers what's happening in their field. And we want to communicate that very often, and we want to communicate during the key parts of the season. The first way we're communicating to growers is about soybean pathogens, specifically fungi, through a product called Crop Voice. And this is a program that we're working on in western Iowa and eastern Nebraska. And really what we're doing is we're using a lot of different parts of technology, and what we're trying to do is give the grower a very, very good understanding of the amount of fungi activity that's going on in their field. So as we all know, if you go to any plant pathology presentation, you've got to talk about the triangle and all the different things about the environment being right. So we've got models in there that talk about the prior weather, and we're understanding what's happening in that geography and how much rain they've been getting and the amount of humidity that's been in place, all those types of things. And then if you look down at the bottom, we've got something called inter-soy signals. And so that's the technology that we're using. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. I'm holding that again to the end for the technology people because we've got to keep focused on what we're providing to the grower. The other thing that we're doing for the grower is we're providing DNA samples. So every week we go in and sample in some of these soybean fields in a sentinel plot network, and we collect these samples, send them to the lab, send them off on Mondays, and by Friday we have the analysis back of key pathogens that are present in that field and an idea of the amount of really how heavy is that pressure across those different geographies. We then back that up with a little bit of local scouting. But for those of you who've ever tried to scout a soybean field in July, it is not fun. It's a lot hotter than this room usually, and it is always hard to walk. I mean, if you're trying to get out into a soybean field and you're really looking around, then honestly, there's not a lot to see. Whenever you get out in the early part, say July 15th, somewhere in that area, you may find a little bit of septoria on the bottom leaves. You may find a few pathogens, but you really don't see a lot that's out there. So we take all that information, we tie it back with looking forward. Everybody wants to make fun of the weatherman, but really weather models are getting increasingly better, especially as you look forward on like a 7-10 day forecast. That information is getting more and more solid each and every year as the technology moves forward. So we get all this information. What do we do with all of this information? We provide every week to the grower a weekly information alert. So it has a summary of what they're seeing with these different areas as far as the tissue samples that are coming in, where things are at in the growth stage, what's going on as far as the weather in that specific geography. These are tied down into like basically a county or two area, so pretty local, pretty understanding. We actually have the GPS coordinates of all the different fields for each of the growers, so we have an understanding of where their fields are and where they lay, and we map those growers into their specific geographies. And we give them this report every week just as a tracking mechanism. Then as we're tracking specific diseases, we move forward into something called an alert. And so this alert is whenever we start to actually see enough fungi activity that we believe action is warranted. So we will send them a text message any time of the week. We review all this information on a daily basis for all of the different geographies that we're working, and we send them this text message that they're going to get an alert. And this alert will be field specific. So if you have a grower that's spaced over a large geography, one of his fields may be included, another one may not be included. So it matters exactly where their fields are located and how where they sit in the geography as well. So they can either get that by text message, or we also have a partnership with John Deere Operations Center where they can actually get that through as a work plan and get that information directly sent into their monitors as well. So now I'll get a little bit to what is the technology? What's the technology that helps us understand that? So as I talked a little bit earlier, every plant out there has evolved with stresses. So as it's evolved with these different stresses, they have different genes in them that turn on whenever the stress happens. So for example, when a soybean gets attacked by a fungi, it starts to try to protect itself from that fungi. And as it turns those genes on, we've tied a fluorescent gene protein to that gene, so that protein turns on at that time. And so within 24 hours of putting a fungi onto a plant, we can see that stress. This works for fungi, it works for nutrient deficiencies, it works for things like drought stress, it works in multiple different crops. So we're working now mainly in soybeans, but we're also working in corn and other crops as well. And what it does is it goes ahead and says, hey, I'm starting to get some infection. And the plant is really telling us this because of how it's turning its genes on. So how we see that physically in the field is actually putting sensors out into the field. So this signal right now, we can see it many different ways. We can see it with small ground-based equipment. We can see it via drones. We can see it by moving equipment as well. And we can also even see it by satellites. But what will happen is this gene will start to be expressed as soon as you get that infection, and we will actually see that glowing, or we will actually see what's called luminescence that is coming off of that plant. And so it's very unique. It's a biotech trait. And what's interesting about this is you physically see this well before you see the symptoms in the plant. So last year when I was out first getting set up with this, I'd be standing next to a row and they'd say, oh, you've got frog eye in this row. And I'd say, no, I don't. I'm sitting right here. I'm taking pictures of this. I'll send you the pictures with my iPhone. There's no frog eye here. When I came back 2 weeks later, there was frog eye everywhere. So that plant already knew that there is frog eye there and there's frog eye present, but I physically couldn't see it. We could see it with the sensing equipment, but we couldn't see it. And so for things like frog eye, you get those circles up in the top areas of the canopy. For different diseases like Cercospora leaf blight, you actually get the purpling-like lesion, but you see it weeks before you actually would see that. And in some cases, you don't even see that purpling whenever the leaf falls off because it goes ahead and senesces later in the year. But it's been there, and that infection is there. The plant knew it was there the whole time, but we didn't know it was there. And so what we're really trying to do is use this information to communicate with these plants and to be able to understand when and how they're feeling different stresses. And again, it's so important that we not get too enamored with the technology. And we always try to tie that back as best we can to the grower. So we've got to integrate as we think about being a startup and working with all the different technologies that are out there and that are already existing and make sure that we are able to get that information back to the grower. So with that, really appreciate the time today. If anybody has questions, I'll be around at lunch and other places. Thank you.
I'll take that. Thank you so much. All right, I think that was worth the wait for lunch because I think that was pretty interesting. All right, a couple of things for lunch here. So we are going to have lunch is going to be on the second floor. So you can either take the stairs over there or there's an elevator right up here. So there will be box lunches, there will be coffee, water, everything around that. We will get started back at around 1:30. So listen for the cowbell. And also make sure you look for the cowboy hat with Zach and Connie to continue the conversation. All right, have fun at lunch. All right, well, welcome back, everybody. Who enjoyed the lunch? Who had a conversation they enjoyed? And who had a conversation they didn't enjoy? All right, well, sorry for you. All right, well, we're hearing a lot of ideas, concepts, but again, what we're doing here is understand the challenge, understand technology, marry them together, and so we gotta hear the voice of the growers. That's very important, so we're very excited to partner with our friends Ad Farm for a Farm Voice panel. So Matt, I will let you take it from here.
Awesome, thanks for having us back. At Ad Farm, as I gave a quick introduction to us, our mission in life is to be a catalyst for the advancement of agriculture. And we feel very strongly that for us to be a catalyst for the advancement of agriculture, we have to be very grounded and rooted in the things that are affecting agriculture and the voice of the perspective of producers that are driving the industry forward. So I'm excited to be a part of today's panel conversation. I always enjoy panel conversations, talking to producers. I know sometimes it's not always your favorite things, but I always find the conversation to be extremely authentic and real. And as we think about moving the industry forward, having your perspective is vital for us to be able to do that more effectively. So joining me today to be on this panel is Jeff Lochner, Nathan Falaidi, and Stephanie Cook. Please join me in welcoming them to the stage. So we have a very quick 40 minutes. We provided handouts with their bios so you can get a little bit of a background information about their farms and their operations. But let's just jump into it. Talk a little bit as we think about new innovations, new tools, technologies. That is a broad perspective and a spectrum of things that includes. So I'd like to just get a little bit of a background not only on your farms but also the things that you are interested in. What are some of the things that you're actively testing, trialing, implementing on your farm? What are areas of focus that you're most interested in? And what are the things that you think represent a great opportunity for you? So Jeff, I'll start with you.
Yeah, well, thanks, Matt, for the opportunity to join the panel. Thanks to Grand Farm for a wonderful event and stuff. So when I think about innovation and what's all available to us as producers, the list is pretty large. We've heard from a lot of different disparate points of view with the startups this morning and the different industry groups. And all that stuff fits together, to hopefully help the producer get better and possibly bigger along with it, but to get better primarily. And that's been an emphasis that we've had on our farm for a number of years. I'm a fourth generation farmer, former ag lender prior to that. And so, I've seen a few different things in a career and stuff, but to get better, it's been the pursuit we've probably spent the greatest amount of time pursuing. And if that means innovation, efficiency, better processes, we've tried to take a look at all of that. I will say, as time has gone by now, since the speed of change seems to be increasing with innovation, we've kind of moved in our thinking from a lot of the agronomic about processes and stuff. We moved more into the financial realm. I mentioned, I'm a former ag lender and have worked in the world of finance. And so we start thinking more in terms of risk management, in terms of margin management, of margin variability, and taking all of the innovation that we can bring to bear in our operation out in a physical sense, and then translating that into decision making and into financial impact and stuff. So that's kind of the short answer to where I think we've evolved with our operation.
Nathan.
Well, I'm kind of maybe an odd duck in the realm of farming. I've had a 15-year hiatus from it, and getting back into it this year at a great, perfect year to timing with it all, as people might know. But I've been around technology since its beginnings in the mid-90s. I grew up through it, so I've seen the evolution of it all and seen kind of everything that exists, and have a lot of great colleagues and connections in the space. But when you bring it to the farm, it kind of changes everything overnight. The things you know can do certain things can't sometimes in the heat of the moment. And I definitely realized some of that. And my dad will tell you that, I maybe got a little hot-headed at times too, which happens. But the thing that's helped me, and I'm kind of maybe most excited for, and it's scary, is AI and how it can help. And I think of it as, if you don't figure out how to use it, just like the internet or other things, it can be very detrimental to you. Not that you still can't farm and have success, but it can open up so many other potential possibilities. I've even started vibe coding my own things, and working with a friend of mine, creating kind of a community called Full Stack Ag, where we're trying to empower and educate other farmers and business people how to kind of tune it to agriculture. Because like for me, I was in the field and, this happened, researching this. I put all my manuals in a project so that I didn't have to go search through a paper manual when something was wrong. I just asked it. And it's like, here's the reference to this and this. Saved me a bunch of time. Yeah. Did I get in arguments with ChatGPT? Absolutely. He probably doesn't like me, and that's going to hurt me down the road when everything becomes sentient. But I need to learn how to use it. Otherwise, I feel like I can be lost in it. Because the land I'm farming, I've never farmed before. But it's my wife's family's land, and I got to make sure it works. So I'm trying to soak in as much as I can, and while I'm looking through the field, it's like, okay, that area matches that, that's this. So I'm trying to speed everything up. And hopefully, 40 years from now, if I'm still alive or someone's farming it in the family, all of that's going to be recorded and contextualized. And the context to all the other, that's where the real value is. It's the missing context. All this data, I've dealt with satellite imagery for 30 years and yield data and as applied data. It's all meaningless without context. And that's the thing that farmers have been scared of putting in or haven't had an opportunity to put that in anywhere in the entire space, is the context to why that matters. Why is that area green? Why is it red? Why does it yield 180 bushels? Not just because the color said, there is a reason behind it. Unless you had context from history, from your, from parents, grandparents, the best thing any farmer can do is say, Grandpa, talk about the farm for the last 30 years. Now, trusting that, where that data goes, who uses it, that's the other side of the coin. That's where the worry comes in with some of the agri-data co-ops that Kyle and Eric are putting together, trying to want to work with them, because that's the other key important part. What I'm also excited for is for farmers to finally say, we need a spot that we trust, that we can use to empower other people to finally listen to what we feel about our data. Because it's been a mecca of craziness where we've had no control beyond saying no or yes. So, yeah.
Stephanie, how about you?
Well, our farm, this conversation would be way more fun if we had $6 corn and $12 beans. It'd be a whole new conversation. So we're using technology. We have a lot of technology on our farm that we're not even scratching the surface of its potential to put it to use for us. So that's kind of where I'm focusing right now, is using that data that I have at my fingertips and those tools and all that stuff so I can make better decisions on our farm and increase efficiency. When we're full-time season, there's 3 of us, my mom, dad, and myself. We have awesome part-time help, but it's after their day job, so we're working nights and weekends when we have a full crew. So any way to increase efficiency, reduce inputs. If we're going to spend money on technology right now, it's going to be on grain storage and management. Not having to have the bottleneck of sitting at the ethanol plant, the crush plant, the local elevator during harvest, and we can just turn and burn from our own facility is a huge benefit. So putting money into our grain storage and technology there, that's where our focus is right now.
It's staying with you, Stephanie. We've talked a lot about some of the ways or some of the technology mediums that you're beginning to look at or beginning to implement, and a lot of that is driven around efficiency or being able to record and have greater transparency in the data and information. But maybe talking about as you're thinking about that new technology, what are some of the benchmarks that you're setting? How are you determining if it's successful or not on your farm? Or how are you determining if it is worth the investment or not to continue to do? Maybe just talk a little bit about the financial side of that as you implement some of those things.
Technology is great when it works. It has to work. It has to reduce our stress. I would love to have a platform that works for spring planting, for summer spraying, fall harvest, winter jobs. But most of the time we get in the planter, we haven't seen that piece of equipment for 10 months, like trying to remember how to use that technology in there, or there's been who knows how many software updates, and then it changes once it does the update. So just trying to figure that all out. If I can remember how to use it, and if I can teach my dad how to use it without making him mad, it'll stay.
Jeff or Nathan, thoughts?
I mean, for me, I've been so exposed to so many things, but when it really comes down to, I guess, the benchmark for whether I'll use it again is, it's almost like if I use it and just feel like I can't sleep at night without it, maybe, it's like I just have to use it. Whether it sucks or not, the experience, it almost like doesn't matter to me. It doesn't even have to work perfectly, because if I like what it can do and I just have the confidence in what it potentially can do, that gives me the benchmark I need. I know everyone talks about, it needs to have ROI in the first year or 3 years or something. And I look at it as more, it's got to have a kind of a return of investment in my brain that I want to use it. I don't care if it makes me money. If I'm confident with it, if it helps me sleep at night, that I made the right decision because I feel like I did with it. I don't necessarily need the results from it. I just need the confidence that it's probably going to work. So it's maybe the return on potential, which maybe that's 5 years from now, maybe it's 10 years, maybe I lose my ass on it. I don't really know, but if it can help me kind of get through it in the moment, I'll figure it out. And that, I don't know, it's kind of like a natural process. You don't even really know you're doing it. Of course, that's probably the best product when it just kind of feels right too. But it can also piss you the hell off and you want to throw it across the room, but you also need to reel it back in sometimes because like, this is important. I really just got to do this.
Jeff, any thoughts?
Yeah, when it comes to implementing new technology, new processes and stuff, and we've beta tested lots of different products with different manufacturers. So kind of the approach that we've taken, and this is from day one with our son runs the day-to-day operations with our farm and ranch, and we've got others that are tech-oriented as well. But the conversation we had with our son was, number one, do we want to give this particular innovation a decent look over, and that kind of worked out to be about 3 years. And the thinking was year one, we'll beta test this product on a pilot or a limited trial basis, get the bugs worked out on it, open up a good dialogue with the manufacturer or the team behind it. Number two, get actionable data that's clean, that's usable, that could be exported to us or to anyone for use. And then year three is when the ex-banker in me kind of kicks up and says, okay, we're either going to suture this thing off right now and cut away from it, or we're going to try to scale this up on a little higher level. And so that's a fairly patient approach. I'm not always as patient as I might like to think I am, but that's been the thing too. And again, the overarching concern for us is it making our operation better? And if we don't have that feeling of you feel better about it, it helps you sleep better and stuff, that is important. But we felt like we had to put some structure around how we're approaching these things. So that's the general approach we have. Some of it's worked out, some of it hasn't. But yeah, we still have an appetite for looking at innovation.
So you touched on a couple things there, and one of which is that adoption curve. There's a number of technologies out there, a number of companies that are trying to do different things. But what's your expectation in terms of adopting these tools and technologies? What is your expectation from those companies, from the support teams, from the sales teams? What is it that companies should know about your farm to help you implement some of these things even better?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's a difficult question, Matt. I would say the most apparent answer to that would be we look at a company that wants us to adopt their product or their process, and we look at them and say, what type of support team, what type of tech support do you have? And of course, we get usually a pretty quick answer, but over time, we've experienced if that support team is not deep, if that startup, that company does not have the commitment to maintain tech support and not leave that producer hanging out when something comes up, that's a deal killer for us. And so it isn't the only factor that gauges whether we adopt or not, but it's becoming a higher factor as a threshold for us.
I mean, for adoption and all of this, it's been such a problematic thing. And seeing a lot of it evolve, I've been very critical of why. And I think one of the issues we focus so much on maybe the tech, the solution, what it can do, and kind of as I was talking about how I evaluate or benchmark, there's this whole like emotional side to how this affects you on the farm or how it affects anything, because some of these things feel like they can kind of take away a responsibility from you, or it does this or that. And I think if more groups that kind of put more of the emotion into the product and really are like, hey, I'm passionate about this. I want you to be passionate about it. And I understand that all these other things are coming through. I think that's a big key to getting more things actually adopted. It's not just a tool. It's not just a process. Yes, those are important. You have to check those off the box. But when you're in the field and these tech breaks down or doesn't work the way it gets emotional, like, am I going to get the field in? Like, I experienced that plenty this year, and I was like, you get in a panic, and then you're like, what do I do? And should I even bought this stuff? And there's like this emotional control. Unless if you're building the stuff and don't really understand what it can do to you in those moments, I think that's a big piece of why adoption's been actually not that great in a lot of things, because the groups promoting it and marketing don't really know that. You need to know that, because half of agriculture is more emotional than anyone really talks about, because it's weird to talk about.
As far as adoption of new technology, technology it's intertwined in absolutely everything in life. So on our farm, we are open to testing out new equipment, doing chemical trials, seed trials, whatnot, as long as it doesn't cause a big interruption into our day-to-day, how we run. So building those relationships, the farm, it's not just a business to us, it's a legacy. Like, I don't want to be the last generation of my farm. So I'm going to do what I can do to help it evolve with time. But time is our most valuable and expensive input in any industry. So if we're giving your company our time, my expectation is you are going to give us your time in return. You're going to get to know us, how our farm works, and help us intertwine your product, your tool, your technology, so we can have a positive outcome and help this technology industry evolve.
I can imagine that there is a constant stream of companies or individuals that are wanting to connect with producers to talk about the things that are new and different. But I want to get your perspective on what's the most valuable. How do you like to learn about new technologies or new products? What are the things that you seek out? What do you want to get more education on, or just how is the adoption of those things and the education of those new tools and technologies? What do you guys prefer?
Face to face, on the farm with us, when we can actually be at our computer looking at it, in our tractor, in our implement, out in our field looking at it. It's going to stick with us a little bit more if we're out there in our own stuff and help us remember what we're doing.
I maybe kind of approach it in an opposite tone, just maybe because of my upbringing. What I want to use, as long as it's out there, I'm going to find it. Because I'm trying to think, what do I exactly need? If I just could dream, what would I build? What would I make? Like many farmers do in the shop, like, oh, I need to fix this. Well, I'll build it. Some metal, scrap metal, whatever. That's kind of how my brain works. So I try to say, this is what I want, and I'll search it. Does it exist? And so if it exists, and that's what I want to look at, then I'll look at it. Whether I can afford it or not, I can at least think through it a little bit. Be like, well, I'd like to try that. Just how would I do that? And so I'd rather almost go to tech than tech come to me. But I'm not the norm. I know I'm not.
Jeff?
Well, I found out a number of years ago that everyone is accessible on the internet. You can be found by those that are looking for you, both good, bad, or indifferent. And so in the past, we used to brainstorm about some of the things Nathan just referred to. What do I need on my farm? What would be helpful? What would I really like to explore more? And since we all get so busy with everything, I kind of took the easy way out and stopped thinking a lot about that stuff. And then all of a sudden, the internet inquiries and calls from different venture capitalists, different startups started coming in. And I used to just hang up the phone when I got calls on some of those, just out of a lack of time or because of time management. And then in time, I said to myself, no, I probably have something to learn because they're backing some new idea, some product. It may be feasible, it might not be feasible, but that's the best way for me to refine my radar screen as to what's out there and what could possibly be coming to market in time. So that's kind of taking care of itself, and then again following up and seeing if it's applicable for us to get involved in. Usually our default is to go back to a trusted advisor, which is in our case our cooperative Agtegra in South Dakota, which I've had a long involvement with, and they've been a great partner to seek out these opportunities and see if they might work at the farm level.
Well, and I think to add, I mean, something I've been doing for a while is, and I've seen other farmers do this and have friends and colleagues, if to find these things, you've got to put yourself out there. Like on social media, I got a big following on LinkedIn because I want businesses to see who I am, what I'm about. I don't want them to guess when they talk to me. I say what I'm doing and who I am. You don't like me, fine, that's great. If you like me, great. Let's talk. At least you can find me and you can know what I am before trying to waste my time. Right. I think more farmers need to think through that a little bit about how they show themselves out there too, because that'll kind of warrant how things come to them as well.
Jeff, you touched on something too. You're always doing a great segue for me. Appreciate that. There's a lot of discussion around the trusted advisors as well. And farms are very complex entities, whether it's a number of animal health or agronomy or equipment or technology, whatever it may be. There is a number of advisors that have influence over the farmer that you work with to help make some of those decisions, whether it be technology or equipment or financial. Maybe talk a little bit about those trusted advisors. Where do you find yourself turning to first? Whose voice do you listen to the most as you're thinking about adopting new technologies or helping with that adoption cycle or curve?
So, because of the relationship business of farming, where they do establish these relationships with agronomy firms, with grain firms, with livestock health or whatever and stuff. I mean, a lot of those relationships have to be transactional to start with, and the trust be earned and stuff. Well, the rate of speed in business today is moving much more quickly than all of us probably admit. And so the question becomes, is there really time to establish that foundational trust? I'm not going to say blind trust, but just a really deep trust that this is a person who's offering advice, they're offering more than product or service, and they're going to be my go-to person, to rely on. I don't know if we have that luxury anymore, but yet there's other ways around that with the amount of information we can access through the internet and through better connected farmers who are doing a better job of telling what they're all about, and so common interests are uncovered. But to me, still, I mean, to be that first call to a person that you want to have trusted advisor status, they're going to have a passion for what they're doing, and they better be invested in our operation to a high degree and stuff. And that doesn't mean to be oblivious to things about what we're doing right or wrong and stuff, but just to make the commitment for the long haul.
Nathan, Stephanie, trusted advisors?
Yeah, there's a lot of it is on us to go out there and meet people, whether it's at conferences. I've been in multiple different nationwide leadership groups that I have made friends and mentors and partners. I think I saw one in here somewhere. I don't know if Steve's still here, but just meeting people, meeting other farmers are probably one of my highest trusted advisors. What works for you? What doesn't work for you? Bouncing ideas off of them. And then those businesses that want our business, that come and spend time with us and really get to learn us and figure out how their product can work with our farm. And then if they will answer my call at 10 p.m. when we're trying to beat the rain, that's some brownie points earning.
I kind of see as my most trusted advisor, while it probably isn't, it should be myself in this process. Because if I can't trust my own judgment and gut, well, then you kind of contradict yourself and you can make mistakes. But really where you're learning is from, the people that farmed it before. I'm taking over from a relative of my wife's who farmed it, and he's just cutting down acres, and he's probably my number one trusted advisor because he's actually farmed the ground. And then I look at friends in the area that I've known. It's like, well, I'm going to ask them, like, what works here, what doesn't. But at the same time, all of that information I'm trying to, soak in. I can't remember everything. And I've been, as I stated earlier, I've been kind of just pushing that stuff into my own farm project in Claude, honestly, to just put it in there so I have it for reference so that I can reference myself back for going on and on and on. So it's a culmination of all these different friends and people and colleagues and actual known trusted advisors, crop insurance agent, agronomist, seed dealer, whatever, and trying to help me become my own trusted advisor so that I can just keep going.
You talked a lot about connecting with other producers. Maybe talk a little bit about that in the sense of, is that a very formal thing? Is it a peer group that you guys have established? Is it folks in your area, neighborhood, family, friends? Talk a little bit about some of the peer-to-peer sharing and how that influences some of your decisions.
For me, it's social media, Snapchat. As much as we hate it, we use it all the time. Look what happened here. So-and-so got stuck in the field, or, but you're all there to help them at the end of the day. Bounce ideas off. You have a problem on your monitor in the tractor, combine, quick snap a picture. What do you guys do? That's been helpful. The young leaders group that I was in, we have a daily Snapchat. We're talking all day long, every day, and it's been 3 years, and they're all across the United States. So I learned how they grow soybeans in Mississippi. It's a lot different than here, which is kind of fun, and it can spark ideas of, hey, maybe I should try that, or a version of that. So I would say social media and texting.
I was just part of a call yesterday with a kind of a new little peer group a colleague put together on the kind of the financial end of how you kind of get through these weird times and what's needed what are people's ideas on how to, turn their farm into something different, or where do you think you need to go? Yeah, those are helpful, and social media and friends, of course, just meeting friends at the bar and having a few and complaining about the farm is a lot of good education there too. But yeah, I think anything you can do to connect to other farmers that want to talk to other farmers is good, no matter where, age, size. I've talked to people from South America, Europe, Russia, China, with other things I've done, other business deals, and you just learn little things and go to other shows where they have things that aren't what's normal, and you learn how agriculture works. And then, naturally, people you just kind of come together. It's like a sixth sense, and it's a natural thing to just talk about it.
Jeff, any thoughts?
A few years ago, I was at a conference, and I was asked the question by a participant, what is the single biggest issue that influences decision-making for producers? And the answer I gave earned me a pretty fair amount of backlash. I said, well, honestly, I think there are times when the last thing that a producer saw on Ag Twitter, now X, the last thing they saw on Ag Twitter was the influence for them to make that decision. Okay, so what I actually should have said and what I meant to say was there is farmers can network with each other, they can share information, and that's probably a solid source of how do we get to a decision point in our own farm versus reading what was on Twitter and stuff. But there's a small element of truth to what I said too, but I had to retract some of that.
Are you big on social media other than X or Twitter?
Am I? Yeah.
Okay, what channels are you most active on?
Probably LinkedIn and X.
And X, okay. Nice. I think we got time for one more question. As we've talked earlier about, advice for companies, ways to understand and connect with producers more, if you had one piece of advice for companies that are coming to visit you or talk to you or talk about their product, what would that piece of advice be? What is it that you wish companies knew most about you or your operation as they think about how best to approach you with new tools or technologies? I'll open it up to anybody.
I'll kick this off. I really hate that I have to bring this up, but if you're going to come cold call our farm and walk in, and I'm the first person you see, don't assume I'm the farmer's daughter. Our farm is 2/3 female, and we're the ones helping to make the decisions. You do that, you might as well just never step foot on our farm again. And that's not just my farm. That is on more farms than you can believe. If I show up to get chemical at your co-op, expect that I know what I'm talking about. I've got my training, I know what I'm doing. Try to change that mentality. You'll get a lot farther.
I would say for me, because I am pretty out there on what I'm trying to do on social media. I've been archiving it out to people. It's just do some research. Literally look up what I'm saying to you. I had one guy when I was looking for some equipment. He's like, "Oh, I found some equipment on this used site," and it was something for harvesting carrots on a 5-acre plot. And it's I think you kind of literally did not read into anything. You just saw oh, it could be a sale. I think that's one of the biggest problems is, there's a farmer problem too, because it's hard to know who that person is unless you're out there and have a relationship. That's why I think it's good to show that, because otherwise you're going to get those crappy people coming to you because they don't know how to find out who you are. So my approach has been, I'm going to tell you exactly who I am. And if you're going to come to me, at least you know, and with confidence that, that might be something that they might be interested in. And just keep it simple. I don't want to pitch of this whole thing, just hey, it'd be cool to catch up or talk. Then I do my research. That's my part after that. It's you reached out. Okay, now it's my time to reach out to understand who the hell you are. Because I have a responsibility too to find the right things. I don't rely on everyone just pitching me and selling me this big thing. I have to learn too.
I think for any group or organization or a partner we're working with, when they approach us and our business, I think the most important thing for them to know is that we have some type of problem that we're looking for solutions for, not maybe the perfect solution, but for options. And also that organization should know that we're going to take an integrated approach to any solution. Meaning it isn't just we're solving one agronomic piece of the puzzle today, but we have a diversified crop and livestock operation. So there's a cattle operation, there's rangeland that has to be considered, there's forage considerations. And so it makes it more complex, but if that person knows we're taking a system approach and not just solving for today, but we're wondering what happens this fall, with that cropping solution we came to or harvest solution or what have you and stuff, that makes for a lot richer conversation, and that has to be cultivated, of course, over the years and stuff, but it makes for a lot better conversation.
Jeff, Nathan, and Stephanie, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for your willingness to be here, to have the conversation, and to sit through my questions. So please join me in thanking them for your time. Thanks.
If you don't follow Nathan on LinkedIn, I'd highly recommend it. Nathan, can you give us a sneak peek of what the next meme is going to be that you're going to post?
I don't know. I have a lot of fun memes, but I am going to be releasing something soon. I'll do a little of my own pitch, I guess, if you'll let me.
Sure.
I'm trying to put together a directory of everybody in ag tech so that people have a place to go to. And for people, vendors, all you people searching, you have a place to showcase yourself that's unique to ag, and farmers and agronomists have a place to go and learn about these groups to kind of bridge this connection, because that doesn't exist except on normal social media. And there'll be plenty of memes there and funness, because I use comedy to get people's attention, good and bad, so.
Most of it's good comedy. All right, well, thank you so much, Nathan. All right, so if you follow the ag tech space lately, you'll know that there's been back in the early 2020s, there was a big jump in ag tech investment, and there's been a big decline. But we believe that our region can be leaders in ag technology, and I'm excited to welcome up our next speaker to talk about a special announcement and how he is proving that we are attracting capital and innovation to our region. So, Kevin, the floor is yours.
What are you going to do? Yeah, I'll ask you a question. Look at this Tom.
All right. Well, actually, I'm going to ask Kevin a couple of questions here. So, first off, Kevin, what are you doing?
Started a company 6 years ago making wearable devices for cattle, and we're really searching to understand those cattle's whereabouts, health, and breeding is what our big ROI is. Having an ROI means something to us, and that's what we're targeting is baby calves, mama cows, bulls, and cattle in the feedlot.
All right. And what did you guys announce this week?
We announced our closing of our 10 million Series B round. We oversubscribed by $1 million, so we brought in $11 million.
Wow, that's great. Congratulations. Let's hear it up. Maybe, Kevin, there's been a lot of talk in the ag tech space around halter and some of the cow tech, I'll call it, being a huge market, and that's where kind of the bright spot in ag tech investment is. I guess maybe you just want to talk about, as somebody that's in this space, how you view kind of ag tech investment and what it's been like raising money?
Yeah, it's been really hard for us because I put a lot of money in up front, so the VCs have not been as interested in that. They like what we're doing. It's just, can they get enough into there to be able to make a difference? So we brought one of our local investors in that can answer a few of your questions too about that. But yeah, there's these huge valuations, $2 billion for halter, who has a shock collar that shocks a cow and pushes them around a pasture. We're not quite sure what the ROI is on that, but they'll start targeting what we're doing, health, breeding, and those types of things. But it's a collar that goes on a cow out of Australia.
All right. Well, Tom, why'd you invest in Kevin?
Oh, the why really goes back to life's experiences. When I graduated from college 45 years ago, I went to work for what is probably known today as one of the most innovative entrepreneurs in North Dakota history. When I went to work for him, he had 20 employees, and 12 years later had 1,000 employees, 8 divisions, and selling into multiple countries. A lot of what I learned working for him, I saw in Kevin in 701X. My family saw in Kevin in 701X. And friends saw in Kevin 701X. So we wanted to support that vision.
Great. Have you done much investment and specifically in the ag tech space?
Yes. both individually and as a family, looking for opportunities all the time. But again, what you invest in really has to fit your model. For us, it's family orientation. Do they have great people? Are their products strong? Are they protected with patents? Are their processes unique that can protect them? And Kevin had all those variables.
Great. We got a lot of startups raising fundraising right now. You got your checkbook with you, Tom?
Not on hand.
That's fair. All right. So Kevin, obviously you're an intrepid entrepreneur. Encourage everybody to look up his background and his past. But maybe as somebody who's started this company, you're seeing a lot of success, have had previous success. What's the advice you would give to the entrepreneurs in the room?
I would say give the people that work for you, find the right people, and give the people the tools that need to be successful. We give our engineers any tool they need, as long as it can be affordable, but we don't see anything unattainable at that point.
Awesome. And then Tom, as an investor, what are you looking for before you write a check?
Sounds kind of strange, but the last thing we're really looking for is ROI and when are we going to get our returns? It's really looking at the model, it's the people, it's the processes and the products. Only then do we start to get into any numbers that we're analyzing.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Congratulations, Kevin. Thanks for supporting Kevin, Tom. And let's give it one more time for their success. All right. So that ends kind of our main stage session. So we got some stuff happening here right now. So I'm going to invite up my colleague, Jada, to talk about what's going to happen next. And you have to listen up, everybody, to figure out where you're going to go and what you want to do.
Thank you, Andrew. All right, before I do that, I want to quick thank our sponsors today. So we have Anheuser-Busch, the Greater Fargo-Moorhead Economic Development Corporation, Ad Farm, Aerial Plot, CHS, NDSCS, NSF iCore Hub Great Plains, KWS, Microsoft, Bank of North Dakota, and Ag Country Farm Credit Services of America for lunch. And then before I go into breakouts here too, I am going to shamelessly plug 2 other events that we're hosting later this year. We have our Elevate Field Day on July 28th at Grand Farm. We have Colin Engel from Roomba. He invented the Roomba. He's coming to speak. And we also have Lisa, how do you say the last name? Gevelber from Google. So she will also be there. And then also Autonomous Nation on September 17th, also at the Grand Farm Innovation Campus. And we have the PTX president, Brian Sorby, and some really cool demos. So we really, really, really want to see you out at the farm later this year. Now, breakout sessions here. We have 4 breakout sessions today. You can go to 2. So how this is going to work is we're going to have 1 breakout session, a break, and then another breakout session. So you guys get to pick your 2 favorite ones. I'm going to call up some of my coworkers who are going to lead you to these breakout sessions right now. So if you are interested in going to decreased reliability of weed control due to herbicide resistance, you're going to go with John Mann. Where's John Mann? Woo! All right, you're going to follow him to the 2nd floor ballroom. If you are interested in going to skilled labor shortages and increasingly complex production systems, you're going to go with Amanda to the 3rd floor. If you are interested in difficulty identifying pest and disease pressure and aligning nutrient applications with variable soil and crop needs, thank you for that title, Andrew. You're going to go with Prabhat to the 2nd floor gallery, right over there. And if you're interested in excess soil moisture and poor drainage limiting access during narrow fieldwork windows, you're going to go with Katie to the Prairie Den office. Quick note on that. If you are wanting to go to that breakout session second, you're going to look out for my teammate Liz. Where's Liz? She's outside. You're going to look for her in the alley right here. She'll lead you up into that space. Any questions? You guys can look at the maps in the elevators, in these signs all around the space. They will tell you the locations of these breakout sessions. And then I also want to, wait, I have one more thing to say. I also want to shamelessly plug our happy hour. We have a happy hour in this space right here in this room from 4 to 6, and we may or may not be having a celebrity guest appearance. So that's some incentive for you to come back. Thank you so much for coming, and enjoy your breakout sessions.